OTB AM with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent modes.
7:30 on this Friday morning on OTB AM. Delighted to have you with us. Thanks for joining us as per always. OTB AM brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mo. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. We're live in the usual places, the OTB Sports app and across the streams as well. So keep the comments coming in this morning. Delighted to have Gavin Cooney of the 42.ie in studio this morning. Good morning, Gavin.
Morning, Shane. How are you?
You were in the cold confines of the Aviva Stadium press box last night for Republic of Ireland 1, Norway 2. Disappointing night, I think, is the best word to use.
Yeah, pretty drab stuff. This is really off Broadway stuff, isn't it? I mean, a friendly against Norway, two sides not going to the World Cup, playing days before the World Cup in an unsanctioned
Feels strange.
window. I thought international football might be a little bit more exciting, given this was unsanctioned and this was. Is it technically illegal international football? But no, it wasn't. And what energy or what atmosphere might have been in the stadium was obviously sapped from it beforehand with the news that Erling Haaland wouldn't be there. So, no, it was a pretty drab night. First half was the kind of game that they'll show to broadcasters.
It was brutal.
But when the next broadcast rights auction for the UEFA Nations League is up, they'll sit down and make the broadcasters watch this game, and you'll realise what an advert for the UEFA Nations League. You forget how few meaningless friendlies we have to play now every year, but this was meaningless in a kind of a Beckett level. You know, it was just such a kind of a drab experience. First half was a total non-event really. Ireland hogged the ball. They didn't really do much with it. There was no real. Alan Brown said afterwards that there was no real zip or pace in their passing or anything that they did. Now Norway didn't do a whole lot either, but Ireland didn't defend set piece as well. So 1-0 at half time, and then Ireland raised themselves in the second half, and then as soon as they got level, they just sank back into their torpor again and contrived to lose it. I mean, Norway almost won it accidentally. Like they didn't put they
weren't trying to win it essentially.
They really weren't, and then the Odegaard just hoisted this free kick into the box that unfortunately Nathan Collins couldn't defend very well, and it was a good finish by the striker first time. Atmosphere
wise, like I was watching through the TV and it seemed fairly subdued. Now of course the fans are reacting to what's before them on the pitch, but it seemed fairly drab in many ways, the atmosphere as well. Yeah, it was pretty low energy. There were times in the first half I felt that the crowd, and in the second half as well, that the crowd wanted to get into this and wanted to get carried away, and there was quite a good reception and quite a loud reception among supporters for just winning corners and things like that, things that normally wouldn't earn that much kudos. But there was just so little happening on the pitch for so long that it was very hard for engage. So it was like 10,000 discreet conversations all happening around the stadium, just this like low hum of conversation, because there wasn't enough on the pitch. And that's, I don't know, Ireland under Stephen Kenny, I wrote in my report, they're forever a side matching like the exact pitch of the occasion. Yeah. So that's great on a night when the atmosphere is charged and the opposition are high caliber, but it's not a good trait to have on games like these. Like they're a lot. They seem at the moment a lot more comfortable feeding off the crowd than doing the feeding themselves. A couple of comments already coming in. Didn't even watch, lads. No interest. Fair enough. Each to their own. Steve says lame and tame from Ireland. Too soft and brittle. The defeat was how we lost to Wales, Finland, Armenia. In all games we lose. We have 25 minutes where we are good, but 65 where we are awful. It's a good point. I mean, I was trying to think about it afterwards. Have there been like a complete 90-minute performance under Stephen Kenny yet? One. And I'm struggling really, because even the Scotland game, the 3-0 win at home where Ireland scored some brilliant goals and were very comfortable in the second half, that might have been different. You know, Scotland missed those couple of chances early on in the first half when Ireland, I think it was Shane Duffy a couple of times, gave the ball away trying to play out from the back. So and that's even the Armenia game in September. We thought Ireland were kind of cruising to a comfortable victory there, and then all of a sudden it's 2-2 out of nowhere, and obviously they rescue it. So no, I think that's a good point. I am struggling to think of a 90-minute performance that they've put together where you can say that's them at their best. Like the set pieces, the concession from set pieces is reasonably concerning. Like I know Stephen Kenny speaking afterwards saying. He denied the suggestion that Anthony Barry and John Eustace had this massive influence over set pieces and they were missing it. He said absolutely not. I've always been in complete control around set pieces, but like
They were poor last night.
Yeah.
I know individual. You could say there's individual errors in there as well, which the manager can't really control. But overall, to be conceding goals like that was fairly sloppy.
Yeah, Ireland aren't good enough to be giving away goals from set pieces.
No.
Like, it's too easy. And Stephen Kenny was quite critical of the fact that they did. He describes them as cheap, and his that second goal is cheap. In his RTE interview, said that Ireland shot themselves in the foot and undid all the good work that they had in getting back into the game. So no, I mean, Nathan Collins should defend that second goal better. I think he knows that. First goal seemed more of a systems failure. Jason Malumbi is in his zone at the front post, and then I can't remember who the Norwegian player runs towards him.
Yeah.
And he's been marked by Alan Brown, and Brown follows him, and he shouldn't. He should stay where he is, and then that leaves the space for Ostergaard, the centre half, who looped around, and that's the space from which he headed home. So that was more of a systems failure. Just on that John Eustace thing. So that was my question. Now I haven't thought about it again. I kind of made a bit of a hames of the question. What I was trying to get to was, the staff is undermanned. Ireland still haven't got a replacement for John Eustace.
Yeah, fair point.
And I just wonder, surely that this isn't ideal. I mean, it's not a criticism of those there. It's just that they have only so many hours in the day, and other national staffs of these large backroom teams with specific set piece coaches. Like, we've heard so much about the Italian set piece coach in during the Euros, who I think is now Tottenham, I think.
Yeah.
So I just wondered that is this growing laxness from set pieces, because it's not the first time Ireland have conceded from them. Is this a result of just not having being a man down on the coaching staff? And Kenny insisted no. I think he interpreted my question as, is this because you don't have Eustace or Anthony Barry
Yeah, he took
on
it
the
quite
staff?
literally.
Yeah, he did. And in fairness, that's partly a consequence of how I phrased the question, which had I my time again, I wouldn't have phrased it that way.
Don't be so hard on yourself, Cal.
Yeah.
It was great. And I guess when you're losing staff members like that, really good staff members, you got to replace them. We got to replace them with someone. And even from an attacking point of view, like that final third, especially in the first half, was just woeful. I feel like the Obafemi Robinson thing just never got going.
No, it didn't. Kenny did talk about it afterwards, that in fairness that they hadn't played together before, and he saw a bit more from them in the second half.
Yeah.
Certainly from Robinson, improved a lot after half time, but they just never connected well. There was a moment in the second half when Robinson got to the byline and just cut the ball back and was just behind Obafemi, had he played another half a yard in front of him, would have been a goal. So they never really connected very well. The first half was just so slow and pedestrian, and it's another. I think Kenny was quite forceful on RT in rejecting the idea that Ireland were too passive in the first half, or were a bit flat. But they were. I mean, some of the passing early on in terms of breaking lines and trying to play through Norway was okay. Like that first pass they'd get off, like Darrow Shea into feet for Alan Brown, but then the next pass was often a little bit too slow. I think it was a game to show that Ireland still lack craft and guile in midfield. Now you're wondering, what players could they bring in? I would have loved to have seen Will Smallbone brought in.
Yeah,
he
earlier.
wasn't introduced at all.
Sorry, Evan Ferguson could have been brought in earlier even.
Maybe, yeah. I just thought that was the kind of game that Smallbone, that type of player, is a player Ireland need to add to that team. So I'm slightly disappointed that we didn't see him earlier. Like other players that could do that role, maybe Jack Byrne or Conor Ronan, are either not playing at club level or just have struggled with injury all season and are not at the level that they can reach, certainly in Jack Byrne's case. So in the second half, Ireland's strength is down the flank, certainly with Matt Doherty and with Callum O'Dowd picked at left wing back, who is playing there with his club but has been an attacker for years. Kenny said that Ireland tried to go through the middle of Norway too often in the first half, had more success in going wide in the second, and look, they created a flurry of chances before they did equalise. It was a great goal by Alan Brown. He might have scored beforehand, someone should have scored beforehand, but again, it's just that laxness. Ireland just, I don't know, they struggle sometimes to maintain a kind of an intent in their passing throughout a full game. Like it happened against Armenia as well, and then we've seen slow starts after half time away to Scotland, in Poland against Ukraine. So if you look at the evolution of this team, 2020 was when the team was deluged with debutants. 2021 was when they found the right system for them. 2022 has been like a year of kind of run the diagnostics and see what flows are coming up.
We thought this would be the year where those players making their debuts will be like, oh, they're coming into their own. It's 2 years down the line, but it hasn't really materialised.
Yeah, well, yeah, probably not to the extent that we would have hoped for. But it was all building up to your 2024 qualifying. that entire long-term plan has been mocked slightly by the draw that Ireland have got. And look, I mean, the hope was that Norway game would be a bit of a tune-up for March. It's not. I don't know if of the 3 players who came in, maybe Alan Brown made the case for his inclusion. I'm not sure Robinson or O'Dowd really did. And the opposition can't be, I mean, there'll be a cracking atmosphere in March. So
no Erling Haaland. I was asking Phil outside this morning, what would the score have been if Haaland had been on the pitch? Now, he made the point the crowd would have, and players therefore, risen to the atmosphere if Haaland was on the pitch. So it's hard to.
I actually kind of agree with Phil on that. I have to say, it just goes back to this thing that Ireland. Sometimes I feel it's not a technical issue with Ireland. Sometimes it is just an issue of intent and intensity, really. Yes. Particularly in the first half. And I think Haaland being there would have sharpened everyone's senses, because he has to. He would have sharpened the crowd, and it would have been louder throughout. There would have been more a kind of a palpable electricity before the game, I think. Yeah. And you don't know. And then, like, Norway didn't really create many chances beyond the ones that they scored, really. So there weren't that many chances where you could point to and say, the lad up front, Jørgen Larsson, missed that and Haaland would have scored. There was the one shot after Bazunu gave the ball away. So no, there wasn't a whole lot else.
I was reading, of course, at half time and full time I was listening to the analysis and off the ball, but Didi Hamann was on television giving sticking the boot in, I have to say, to Ireland. I'm just reading some of the comments here. He said the first half is as poor as I've seen. The manager hasn't won one game in 2 years that he needed to win. It was an opportunity for some of the players to remind the manager when the France game comes around that I'm here too. But we talked about inconsistency. Ireland were huffing and puffing. Over 90 minutes, just not good enough. He said we had a discussion 2 years ago about transition, that we build and bring players in. These players have all been around for years. If it's not working the way you're doing it, you've got to change something. I'm the last person for a manager to call out players, but you've got to do something about it, because the first half is as poor as I've seen. The first half was pathetic. Like, does he have a point? Does Stephen Kenny need to call out the players to any extent here, or is that just not? It's not in his repertoire. He doesn't do that generally.
No, and I don't think any manager really should. I mean, what little I know about football, I learned from watching John Giles and RTE growing up. And one of Giles' many golden rules was, as soon as you see a manager criticise the players in public, it's done. And in fairness, like, Jose Mourinho is
king of it.
is the most obvious example of that. No, the idea that the solution to Ireland's issues in that game was for Kenny to come out and lambast his players in the press is absolutely rubbish, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
He was tempered in his criticism, but the criticism was there, and it was slightly firmer than it had been before. Basically, Ireland did not defend the goals well, and it gave away cheap goals, and using the phrases like shot themselves in the foot. I think that's fine. I thought he spoke pretty well after the game. He struck that balance better in terms of his analysis, and his summation of the game was I thought he struck a tone, a better tone then than he had previously, certainly after the Armenia game in September.
A few more comments coming in across the YouTube. Plenty of people have opinions on this morning, no doubt. Norway have better players, says Danny. We have no quality. That's why Kenny got the job. It's not attractive anymore. Matthew O'Connor says, per performance, has you worried about France coming to town? Mark says that's the per display is down to the players, not Kenny. Steve says we are basically where the Irish rugby team were in the 90s, wooden spoon whipping boys. David says, I go to the home games, we need 2 players in central midfield who can take the ball and pass it up the pitch. Without that, Kenny system does not work. Worried about times ahead, clock ticking. And then more people talking about these fixtures, the World Cup fixtures coming up. Someone really sticking the boot in, saying whatever about France and the Netherlands, Greece are going to beat us 1-0 and we are going to draw with Gibraltar.
I don't think we'll, I know it might be a hostage to fortune here. I don't think we'll draw against Gibraltar. The Greece game is a bit of a nightmare. The Greece game is a bit of a nightmare in the sense that they were the trickiest side Ireland could have got out of pot 4 as well. Like, they're the real sleeper in this group of death, and that in many ways is the most important game, because Ireland's performance in the group stages won't have a bearing on whether they get a Nations League playoff or not. It's everyone else's performance.
Yes,
but they have to be at the stage where they have to be at the stage under the manager now where they're able to go and beat the sides that they're ranked above.
100%.
And this is where the draw and even the fixture list is a nightmare for Ireland, because they have to go away to Greece in June in the heat of Athens, which is going to be very difficult, and it's midway into June, so it'll be weeks after the championship season ends.
Yeah.
We saw how rusty the players were away to Armenia last year, so that's a difficult one. I mean, in many ways, that Greece game is kind of almost the most important game in the group in a way, because it's so unlikely that Ireland would split Ireland could acquit themselves very well in the group and just not split the top 2, just because of the level of individual quality on their sides. Yeah. But in terms of looking forward to any potential playoff, it's the Greece game it's probably the best measure of how the side is improved.
I was listening to Alan Brown after the match, and he keeps talking about how Norway were just very compact, tough to break down. It strikes me like when a player's saying that, what you need in that situation is maybe substitutions, early substitutions, half-time substitutions. Like, the argument has been made that Kenny maybe doesn't make the substitutions early enough. What was it, 75 minutes before anyone came off the bench last night? This is a friendly, let's not forget. Malta to come on Sunday. There's plenty of opportunity here for people to get your opportunity. As you say, Will Smallbone was sitting there, ready to go. Ferguson, and even you're taking on players like maybe Hendrick and Brady who you know what they can do.
Yeah.
So maybe take on the lads you don't know much about earlier. Still bring on your Brady and Hendrick to get their caps in, but it just struck me as substitution wise too late almost.
Yeah, it was very late. I mean, the team now is very much in its evolution phase rather than revolution. The revolution has happened in terms of numbers of players blooded, etc. He picked a pretty settled team. You could argue pretty much 8 of that team that started our first choice now. The 3 people who came in were O'Dowd at left wing back, Robinson up front and Brown in midfield.
Yeah.
They were the understudies ready to see what they had in the limelight kind of thing. As I mentioned, maybe Brown was the best of the 3. And then there was very little experimentation beyond that. Obviously Ferguson came on for his debut on the 88th minute mark. I'm not sure he touched the ball. Hopefully we'll be looking back at this game in years to come as Evan Ferguson's debut, because
exactly.
It won't be remembered otherwise. Again, I would have liked to have seen Smallbone just to see what he could add. Like, I know there's an element of he wants, this is the team, and we want the team to further cohere, and that the more minutes they get together, the better. But at some point in the second half, even in the first half, you're thinking Ireland are lacking so much in midfield here. Let's just see what Smallbone brings. Let's just give
it a go.
Give an answer to the question. I think I would have liked to have seen that, and I would have liked to have seen it earlier. But evidently, we're at the stage now where Kenny is like, this is the group I have. This is what we're going to run with for your 2024 qualifying.
Keep the comments coming in on the Republic of Ireland. Your thoughts on last night. Were you at the match? Were you watching? Your thoughts on Stephen Kenny, the team itself last night, the performance. So we'll return to that across the show, of course, and we'll have plenty of reaction from the players, including the goal scorer Alan Brown. All were speaking to Nathan last night. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock. So 8 o'clock we've got Ronan O'Gara joining the show, so loads to delve into with him, including the Babas himself and Scott Robertson, of course, taking charge of that Babas win last weekend over New Zealand 15. Quinny then from 8:20 will of course be looking ahead to the Australia test tomorrow evening at the Viva Stadium, 8 p.m. Sports pages from 8:45, all the headlines from this morning. 8:55, Ryan McHugh will join us to reflect on the incredible Donegal career of his former teammate Michael Murphy, who of course has hung up his boots. Kevin Kilbane has joined myself and Adrian. We've had a chat with him yesterday, so we'll play that out for you. And he's talking about Canada's chances at the World Cup. Of course, Kev working over there at the moment, and we'll talk about Ronaldo's interview, the 2-part interview with Piers Morgan, and plenty more reaction to the Republic of Ireland loss to Norway last night from 9:30 as well this morning. Just want to touch on a couple of the back page headlines in the papers this morning. FA calls out FIFA over migrants. This is the sporting headline on the Telegraph. Failure to improve workers' rights in Qatar has challenged England invite group to their World Cup training complex. So this was an unsanctioned thing that the English team did with a group of migrant workers. Had a training session with them, which was a lovely thing to see. And Erasmus's referee jibes land Twickenham ban. So Rassie Erasmus, South Africa's director of rugby, banned from all involvement in his side's game against England at Twickenham next weekend. Suspended by World Rugby for 2 matches following his Twitter posts and rants after all of these games. The Daily Express across the water too has feel good factor. Foden has a real belief 3 Lions can lift the trophy. The English hype train has started in earnest ahead of the World Cup. Iran star hits out at campaign. Iran captain has hinted at a campaign to destabilise his side ahead of their World Cup opener against England. He suggested there's attempts to undermine the squad's mentality after he was asked how the anti-government protests back home had affected the players in the build-up. Max Verstappen, F1 abuse, disgusting. He's told the world of Formula 1 not to go after his family. He's described social media abuse following last weekend's Brazilian Grand Prix as unacceptable and disgusting. So of course he was criticised after his refusal to allow his teammate Sergio Perez to overtake him at the season-ending the second last race, the Brazilian Grand Prix last weekend. Evan sent, that is in fact not a headline from today, I'd imagine. That is yesterday's paper, so we'll ignore that one, although it still stands to reason. Evan Ferguson on the back page, and hopefully he can score against Malta on Sunday and break that record to become Ireland's youngest ever scorer. The back page of the Herald, Norway strike late to scupper Ireland. Brown effort not enough to rescue Kenny's men. It was a good strike from Alan Brown at least.
It was great. It was just such a satisfying cut across the ball.
Yeah.
And the ball set up nicely for him. the shouts of shoot were, I think the ball had just been cleared. It was maybe still connecting with a Norwegian head.
The fans just wanted something.
Just like, give us something.
Yeah. So it was a lovely goal. At least that was something to cheer about last night. Farrell urged players to keep their heads for Aussie clash. That's, of course, Andy Farrell talking ahead of that match. We'll do the back page of the Mirror. Al in vain. Republic of Ireland 1, Norway 2. Brown's brilliant bullet. Mere consolation as Norway expose set-piece frailty. Wales sweating on the fitness of Joe Allen. Time running out for him to make Wales' World Cup opener. And terrible news for Senegal's Sadio Mane. He has been ruled out of the World Cup. So injured playing for Bayern Munich earlier this month, and he has failed to recover on time. Senegal's record goal scorer. X-ray on his injured knee yesterday. That's a bit of a blow for Senegal.
Puts the sad in Sadio, really, doesn't it?
Oh, very good, Gavin.
No, it's very upsetting for Senegal and Mane. But good news for Qatar.
Well, yeah, you were saying this. So that group is. What tell us about that
Netherlands,
group?
Senegal, Qatar, and Ecuador.
So expect the Dutch to top that group.
Yeah, and then if Senegal are very good, like if they had Mane, I thought that maybe they could match what they did in 2002 and go to the quarterfinals.
Yeah. Progress a little bit.
Now I'm not so sure. I think Qatar will have benefited from effectively being a club side. Like, I mean, the Qatari leagues shut down in September. They've been training away together, and they'll have a level of kind of cohesion that no other side will have. You know, I mean, this has been cobbled together. Within 7 days of the European season going on pause. So, I don't know. I think Qatar. I know we saw them in a friendly against Ireland 2021 where they were
that day.
Truly useless, and they also, that poor form continued on into this year. They, as part of their preparations during the summer, they lost a closed doors friendly to Linfield. Lost 1-0. But
come back from that.
Will they become the first side to lose to Linfield and then go to the World Cup last 16? Possibly.
They'd take that certainly as hosts to get progressed beyond the group stage, because that is a relatively tough group. But with Mane being out, that the back page of the Sun covers that story as well. Sad Mane, suffers KO. Bale still perfect. Gareth Bale getting into the swing of things. We'll come back to this as well. Ron's 10-day. Cristiano Ronaldo blasting Erik ten Hag's excuses after unleashing another scathing attack on the Manchester United boss. So part 2 of that interview was aired last night, so we'll come back to that later on. Vikings smashed her, Kenny fighting his corner after loss. And I guess the back page of the Guardian as well. I mean, Gav, you're heading to Qatar. We're going to touch on this now. You're flying out tomorrow, but Beckham beams in with a message of tolerance. Qatar ambassador's vision for hosts. England field training burn as they ponder taking a knee. England dealing with the heat. I think they're taking beetroot juice and turmeric and stuff to kind of cope with the heat. Colin Buhig, our producer, pointed this photo out this morning. Phil Foden, what looks very, I guess, communist, Soviet Union-esque Russia vibes with the granny's curtains furniture.
Is that a tear in the curtain?
It is a tear in the curtain also in the back. What appears to be a tear in the curtain. So you've got the wall and the curtains and the carpet and the conscience. And
that must be the England hotel.
Of course.
The tear in that curtain, that's a real bang of intro to Athletic long read on England's disastrous World Cup in Qatar.
What does the tear mean? Yeah. So Gav, you're flying out to Qatar tomorrow. How are you feeling ahead of the trip? Are you nervous?
Well, look, I'm looking at videos of security guards forcefully pushing away journalists and threatening to smash cameras. So, yeah, really looking forward to it.
It's concerning for journalists as well.
I have to say, I am excited about it. I have to say, I know it's certainly the most controversial World Cup since 1978, and rightly so. It's almost like a moral quandary for everyone who's either going or sitting down to watch. Who isn't a blazer at FIFA, it would seem. I mean, they're the only ones who weren't assailed by their conscience over this. And David Beckham as well has obviously won the war with his own conscience over all of this as well. But no, I'm really looking forward to it. There's a professional level of excitement there. It's the biggest story in the world, and to be at it is a pretty amazing opportunity.
There's the story as well that's kind of come out in the papers this morning as well, but Qatar wanting to ban Budweiser being sold in stadiums. So all along we've been told that Budweiser is the beer that's being sold in grounds or whatever else. And just 2 days out from kickoff, so today 48 hours of course from the Qatar-Ecuador game on Sunday. So in talks with FIFA, who are shocked by the late nature of this call apparently, FIFA already conceded to Qatar 2022 and making Budweiser stands less prominent in the stadiums. This came at the insistence of the Thani royal family in Qatar. Alcohol, of course, will be sold at the Doha fan parks, but there's talk that this is going to happen. Alcohol will be banned from stadiums, which is a mad late call. I mean, 48 hours out from the first game, it's like the Qataris have just seen all the fans starting to arrive and they're like, no, let's pull the plug.
Yeah, not to the place is ruled by royal decrees, so I mean generally what they want they'll get, so I'd expect this to happen if it's being reported and if it's being weighed up. But it's also consistent with some of the slightly chaotic preparation and the moving things on a whim. We know that for example, for a tournament that was awarded 12 years ago, the start date was brought forward by a day, which is with just over 100 days out. That was again, so that meant FIFA had a load of sponsors activation launched around the world around 100 days to the World Cup. That was instantly out of date. There was an extraordinary story reported by Tariq Panja of the New York Times back then that the Emir of Qatar was on his way to an official stadium opening and decided to rename the stadium and the car on the way to it. I can't remember. It might be the Al Janoub Stadium.
You couldn't write it.
Yeah, no, and so people arrived, and all the signage and all the branding and everything is done for the stadium, and it's just like, oh, by the way, we've renamed it on the way here. So yeah, that's just another little insight into the country in which they're dealing with. But some might say that FIFA might have had an idea that this was possible before they awarded it to Qatar, unless, of course, maybe they didn't do their full due diligence, which is,
I mean,
a possibility.
Who could possibly accuse FIFA of not doing due diligence? I mean, it's a bit. You're staying in Doha, is it? So, what's the setup for journalists?
Yeah.
Is it just a case of all journalists are penned in one area together, or is it kind of fairly fluid?
I'm in a hotel, with the Irish Times, by pure chance in Doha, and then it's it's like, I suppose it's more like an Olympics in the sense that, look, I've never been to a World Cup before, but it's all in one place. Usually, last year have been Russia and then in Brazil. So these huge continental-sized countries, I'd imagine you spend most of the World Cup flying from one city to another. That obviously won't happen this time. You'll hop on a metro line.
Next time as well, for USA, Canada, Mexico. That's going to be a lot of flying.
Lately, the metro line covers most things. So it seems like there's this giant media centre that is an old converted airport from which is like everyone's central node, and then they'll hop on shuttle buses out to the various stadia. In terms of going off the beaten track for stories, I'm not sure many people will be able to do that, because I'm not sure if there's a non-beaten track. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like staying between the rope.
It's just the place is so small, and it's there's so many stadiums, and it's all kind of on that kind of quite defined circuit. So we'll have to see how it goes. So no, I am super excited about it.
I guess those stories will be around the teams. Like some teams, no doubt, will take political stances during matches or before games or whatever, and we don't know what some of these things will look like. It could be as simple as wearing the rainbow laces or taking the knee, as we're saying England could be planning to do. So there's going to be little things, but you'd imagine a couple of teams will have some serious stances and have maybe discussed in their leadership groups to do something. So maybe that the stories will be at the games.
Yeah, I mean, quite possibly. I'm not sure what is planned. Obviously there's the rainbow armband, but that's quite a subtle protest, really. I'm not sure that'll send too many ripples around the world. Obviously Australian players spoke out ahead of the tournament. I got the sense maybe that they spoke out because in the sense that that's their stance. It was very admirable and very powerful, and they should be praised for it and nothing else. But you get the sense that maybe that was them addressing the situation ahead of the tournament. Will they continue to do so during it? Maybe they will. I don't know. But FIFA will ban what they see as political slogans.
Yeah.
So the Danish team tried to wear t-shirts bearing the phrase "human rights" at training.
What a terrible thing to do.
And FIFA rejected it as political.
How dare they wear a t-shirt saying "human rights"?
And but for FIFA to interpret that as a political slogan is kind of, it boils down the outlook, which has resulted in sending the World Cup to Qatar.
Was Grant Wall, the US journalist, tweeting the other day, talking about even he was trying to take photos of a slogan or something in a public area and
in a media centre.
In a media centre,
and there was a giant bland slogan on the wall of a media centre, and according to this story, he took a picture of it, and a security guard sidled over to say, "No pictures, and can you delete that, please, sir?" It's just like, that's on the wall of the media centre, like that's where at the accreditation collection point. So literally every journalist, every international media figure going to the World Cup will pass through this room. So
they're just not used to this freedom of expression, possibly the
I
security
think that's going to be the issue, and that's at the root of a lot of the uneasiness among people wondering whether to go or not. The gap between what's said by those organising the tournament and what's put out in FIFA press releases and what might actually be enforced on the ground. How do you change
the years, if not decades long practices and principles and outlooks of those on the ground for the sake of, for just, you know, at the flick of a switch, as if to say, you know, hands out, like this is going to be light touch for a month.
You know what games you're covering?
So I've got a list. Only some have been approved at the moment. I'm definitely doing England's 3 group games, and I'm definitely doing France-Denmark. I can only assume that FIFA looked at my previous list of matches.
That'll be a great game.
And assumed I was Danish, given I've done so many other games before. So I'm looking forward to it. I've applied for loads of others as to whether, because everyone is the same place, obviously much easier to get to games.
Yes.
We're allowed to go to two a day. So I just have to see as to whether I'll make the cut for other games. I was talking to someone a few, they reckon I should be grand for 1 game a day, but Spain, Germany I'll struggle for, and Brazil and Argentina games I might struggle for, which would be
be nice to
which
get
would
one
be
of them,
super disappointing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'll take, if FIFA are listening, I'll take Argentina, Saudi Arabia, not a bother.
If anyone's listening, just get Gav to an Argentina or Brazil game, please. We'll return to that later on in the show, and of course we'll be talking the Cristiano Ronaldo interview, part 2 came out last night. Some mad quotes from that again last night for United fans. Look away now, I think. Now, Braeburn Coffee is the official coffee partner of OTB. Whether you're travelling to work in the morning or training in the evening, Braeburn will give you the boost you need. Available at Applegreen locations nationwide. Each week we're giving one lucky viewer a €100 voucher to spend on some Braeburn coffee goodness at an Applegreen store near you. To enter, check out @OffTheBall on Twitter. Just like and retweet our Braeburn competition post and you are in the draw. After the break, we're live with Ronan O'Gara. See you then.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
OTB GAA.
Roscommon is football mad, like.
Oh yeah, they're mental about it. I was sitting in a petrol station last night in Roscommon, and oh mother of God, the window got tapped 3 times in 10 minutes. They are
That
mad.
was the one lad.
They're mental about it, yeah.
Don't go to Rockford now until you win something.
Yeah, we'll hold off, yeah.
Subscribe to the OTB GAA podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. OTB AM with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent modes.
1:05 on this Friday morning on OTB AM, brought to you by, with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mo. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. Delighted to say Ronan O'Gara joins us on the line this morning. Morning, Ronan. How are things?
Morning. Hi guys, how are you?
Keeping well. You had a fascinating weekend last weekend with the Babas. Looked like a lot of fun, I have to say, Ronan. 35 points to 31 win over this New Zealand 15. Looked like a bit of crack.
Yeah, it was. It was a great week. Fantastic week. Just coming off, I suppose, the treadmill of a top 14, 10 weeks in a row, grinding away, and then just kind of absorbed or by results, you know, and then you just see a complete different spirit of how the game can be played, and it probably poses more questions in your head. So it's good that this week is off as well. So we'll try and mix a little bit of the Baba spirit with, I suppose, the traditional structured approach to how the game is played. So this week has been pretty reflective week in terms of how best to prepare for the next block of games coming up, with Europe beginning, but also the top 14 continuing to go on as well.
Ronan, it's a pretty minimal exposure to the Babas in terms of 1 week during the international window. Do you take anything from that back into La Rochelle, or is there anything that you can learn from that?
Yeah, you could take loads. You know, I think it hits you hard sometimes in terms of, you know, maybe having too much of a straitjacket on guys. And I suppose the fundamental question I'm asking myself this week is that just how can you get players showing their natural instincts within a game plan, within a structure, because you have to have a little bit of structure, obviously, and that's, I suppose, the golden question for me is how do you let them play free, and how do you let them play with, I suppose, with some people they don't see it as quickly as other players, and that's, I suppose, always how, you know, the great players, they seem that they have so much time on the ball. So, you know, we kind of came up from scratch and literally 3 training sessions, and you know, we looked pretty good with the ball. So it just shows that it can most definitely be done. And sometimes I think we probably stagnate our players by probably over emphasising maybe structure and detail and a robotic approach. So for me, it was fantastic in that regard, because I suppose things now to look at going forward.
I saw a great clip on Twitter, Ronan, amongst the celebrations. Adele, Someone Like You, being blared out by yourself and the players. I looked over to the left-hand side of the screen, and who was blaring it out with the most heart? I think it was yourself. So you don't want to give us a few bars this morning, no?
No, it was great because we obviously, the big part of the BAB is you do a lot of restaurants during the week, so it'd be lunchtime or dinner time, a few beers are allowed. So we got that balance right early in the week. We went hard, and towards the end of the week that completely petered out. So I think for creating harmony and cohesion among a group, a sing-song does it. We had Joe Marler in the group, and we had a lot of French guys, so very, very, I suppose, different cultures and different personalities. But what united us was song, and I think on the Thursday night we had, or the Wednesday night, or maybe even the Tuesday night, I don't remember now. There was great, just spontaneous singing, because these things either happen naturally or they don't. There's nothing worse or more cringy than a forced sing song. So it just happened, and I think by the end of the night, Adele was probably the one that everyone bought in most of. So it kind of became our theme song for the week. And then it was nice that Joe Marler led that. It was my first time, I suppose, in an environment with him, a pretty special character in the modern game, and very, I suppose, different to a lot of your normal players that play nowadays, but hugely interesting and a great person to get to know. We had Will Greenwood on the show last week, and he was looking forward to even being there and meeting up with yourselves. That partnership with Scott Robertson as well, it must have been great just for the two of you to kind of swap ideas and bounce off each other from a coaching point of view as well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it goes, a lot happens too. Kind of. I suppose I left the Crusaders a few years ago now, and I'm stuck in my world, he's stuck in his world, but we're still involved in rugby, and it's very, very simple, really. But the approaches can be very, very different. So it was important just to probably check in with each other, see how we're going, what I need to get better at, what he needs to get better at. And it feels like I know him all my life, really, but I don't, obviously. But there's a very natural relationship there, and it's very easy for him to say harsh things to me, what I need to get better at. And he obviously understands the European game a little bit better from being in constant contact with me. So, I think what is, I suppose, the takeaway point is that he has a huge aura about him, but a very positive aura, and that goes straight into his environment. And, I think we have to remind ourselves we're very lucky that we don't work, we coach rugby, and I'm very passionate about that, and I love doing that. But sometimes you can be, no matter how mentally strong you are, you can be, I suppose, ground down in the top 14. So the timing for me for a pause was beautiful. So just recharge the batteries this week and attack next week. We've been hearing for some time that England's next coach after the World Cup is going to, preferably from their point of view, be an Englishman. But Bill Sweeney's come out this week, you've probably seen the quotes, saying it has to be the best coach. So the RFU's preference no longer for an Englishman to succeed Eddie Jones necessarily as England coach. Yourself and Scott, that could be a nice pair in Ronan, surely? Yeah, it could be, it could not be either. There's a lot to that. I think once you've kind of tasted being the head man, it's very, very probably your vision. Very, even two people very aligned sometimes don't have the same vision. So essentially only. But then again, titles don't really interest me too much. It's just a case of what role you'd like to do and what role Scott would like to do, and how you share responsibilities potentially. But even before that, it's a big mental leap for me to decide upon. I wouldn't be straight out. I wouldn't have given that the time required at the minute. All I said at the minute is that you wouldn't rule yourself out of that job. But if you were to commit to something like that, I think I'd have to sit down with my family and probably work it out, because I think I understand it's a professional game, but I also understand where I'm from and what I represent. So there's a few stages, obviously, before that becomes, I suppose, very hot.
100%. And it was interesting, even Brian O'Driscoll was on the show with Ger this week, and he's talking about, that like, a lot of managers wanting to get into the international game. Of course, the club game is brilliant and it's exciting, and you're playing week on week, and then to get into the international game at some point is the dream for many. Like even Johnny Sexton was asked about this week, Ronan, and he name dropped yourself as well. He was asked if he was going to go into coaching himself whenever he decides to hang up the boots, and he said straight away, I don't think so. As a coach, you need to go out, you need to learn, you need to travel. My family is fairly settled in Dublin. My kids love it here. They've got their friends and family. I'm not going to do something like Rog has done, which is amazing. Go to France, go to New Zealand, come back to France, stay in France. He's been away from Ireland for 10 years. I'm not going to do that. Like it was interesting to hear him say that, because you've gone out and cut your teeth. I guess homesickness comes into it a lot as well. In order to get that experience abroad, you have to leave home.
You don't have to do anything. That's the simple answer to it. I think you can create a position that I think stimulates you. And Johnny would fit definitely into that category, because I think he's got an exceptional brain and he thinks about the game very differently to a lot of people. So he doesn't necessarily have to go away. I just think that it's very easy, I suppose, for people to observe and make general statements, but someone like Johnny wouldn't fall into a general category. He's very much an outlier in everything that he has done and will continue to do. So, I think he would be a big addition to any coaching group. That's no doubt about it. He doesn't have to travel to do that. He'd be, an on-field coach anyway in the last number of years, without a shadow of doubt, especially in the position that he plays and the leadership that he brings in that position. So, I think you can see in sport, in the Southern Hemisphere, there's in a lot of the NRL clubs, and an awful lot of them are appointing leadership coach. But do you want a leadership coach that has qualified through university, or do you want it that has qualified through experience, or a mixture of both? But because I think you do need, obviously, the methodology, but also the structure behind you. But like Johnny would be a perfect example in that case, that he just has so much wisdom that he probably hasn't enough time left in his life to get that out, because he's excelling in the playing capacity. But it's very, very similar really in the fact that he wouldn't have to play, but he can also empower his players to play, or to hopefully get near where he played, and that would be a huge, I think, fascinating journey for him. But he'll decide that. I think he's right. I think the minute you start thinking of coaching, you lose it as a player. So he'll have plenty of time for that.
Sorry, Ronan, just to build on what you said there, it sounds like would Johnny be better served in almost like a technical capacity as a coach, or it sounds that he might be quite an inspirational addition to any coaching ticket based off what you said there?
Yeah, the perception sometimes isn't the reality. I think underneath the dour competitive Johnny, there's a very sensitive Johnny, there's a very funny Johnny, and he has a wicked sense of humour. I just think that when I suppose the public see him, it's in a sporting domain, but like, you can't be on all the time. There's plenty of times when he's off, and he's very, very good company to be around. So technically I think, having spent so much time with Joe, which should never be underappreciated, I think he has that, I suppose, detail in his game, but we're also seeing under Andy, I suppose, the capacity to get the best out of the human side of people. So you combine the two of them along with Johnny's natural ability and instincts as a person, that's quite an impressive potent of forces of strength. Sorry, I'm mixing my French and my English words.
You're so bilingual now, Ronan. It just comes
no,
naturally.
Believe me, I'm not. But when you're 10 years out, it begins to happen. Because I'm thinking in French now as well as English.
That's unbelievable. Ronan, was the sad news of Jerry Holland's passing, talking about coaches and inspiring coaches this week, and of course it was terrible for everyone in Irish rugby and in Munster and down in Cork Con as well. You've written a lovely piece in your Irish Examiner column as well referencing Jerry Holland. He said, the quiet architect of special Munster days. I'd love to have told him in recent times how frequently I've leaned on his tutelage. It's a very sad loss.
Yeah, it is very, very sad, and I suppose a lot of, you mean Golf Claw's group to Quinny's group to Paulie's group to Peter O'Mahony's group would be very touched by Hall, a special man, and it's not just because he's passed away we say that, you know. I think he made a man of a lot of boys, and I think he was very, very fair with us, and he showed us, I suppose, the hard and straight road. And one thing I always remember was kind of when you played in Musgrave Park or Port Ward or Red and Munster, irrespective of whether win or lose, if you show up, the public will respect you, and I think that's something that will always stay. You know, I think you can't guarantee a result, but I think for Munster people, showing up and giving your all was what meant a lot to the people, and Hall instilled that in us.
I was actually reading back one of your older Examiner columns last night from, I think it was from 2016, from March 2016. You had a great story. If you'll allow me for a second. So you're talking about, once I arrived back to Munster pre-season with a bleached head of hair, I'd gone mad in Greece, obviously. We were treated to a horrible fitness session on the track at the Mardyke, animal stuff, 10 400 metre runs, followed by 10 more at 300 metres. We survived, and I anticipated a pat on the head from manager Jerry Holland or maybe Niall O'Donovan, our forwards coach. Great session, Rod, you hung in there, good to see, that sort of thing. More fool me. Instead, Jerry stared at me. By the next session, have that hair gone. So no messing around with Jerry Holland, Ronan.
No, but it was just, like, I can only imagine what would happen. We probably would, with the GPS nowadays and the recovery with performance coaches, you wouldn't be allowed to train for a month if you did 10 400s, 10 300s. It was a time I actually, Tomas O'Leary was picked up off the grass in the out by the farm by UCC, because we didn't have GPS. We used to just run till you drop, and. But that was the era we were involved in. Holly, exactly. It was kind of, I was feeling really good, finished the session, great nice work. And Hall was just looking at this little upstart going, look at the state of this guy. And he didn't have to say it right. He just said, have that gone by Thursday night. And of course, it wasn't a case of, will I chance it now and try and get another few days out of it? First job done that afternoon was straight to the hairdressers and get it shaved off.
Did you think the bleached hair was going to make you faster, or what was the thinking behind it?
Nah, I just think, I see it with my 14-year-old now, you just think you're too cool for school, isn't it?
It's a 60-year holiday job, isn't it, really? Yeah. But sure, look, you can try it again, maybe go back to it at some stage for charity or something.
No, it doesn't work. Or shaving, I don't have the right shaped head either. I don't get it tanned enough to peanut to pull it off, you know, so
fair enough.
That's why I have the safe bet, which is short back and sides and to the side for the last 40 years.
You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with that one, Ronan, to be fair. There was a great photo you had up on your social media. We're speaking of the Ireland-Australia game tomorrow night as well. We have it up on screen here. Congrats to Jack Crowley. He dreamt of today for a very long time. Well done. A lovely photograph of yourself years ago with a very young Jack. I don't know what age. Maybe he's probably 10 or 11 there, maybe. Like debut against Fiji last week. He's come a long way, Ronan, and I know you tried to bring him over maybe to La Rochelle at different points. He's a player you admire a lot.
Yeah, I've probably been tracking him for a long time. It was Donal Lennon that introduced me to him a long time ago, and Donal, obviously, he knows his cattle very well. And I just remember from meeting him I think it was in the Clarion Hotel maybe 4 or 5 years ago, just the way the guy spoke, I understood he got it and he wanted it. They're probably two of the most important things in the number 10 role, and I think he knew he'd have to have resilience. And I think already at a young age you'll go, well, he hasn't been tested, but he has been tested. I think now his growth could be huge. I think mentally he's done an awful lot of, I'd say, prep work to put himself in certain situations, like a game tomorrow night. I think will be good for him, and his ceiling could be huge. I think the combination of the experience of Johnny, but also the probably the exuberance and the young legs of Jack Crowley could be very nice combo for Ireland.
Finally, Ronan, how do you see the game going? I guess Australia have a couple of defeats, but I mean, you can never underestimate them, and they'll probably love this idea of coming to Dublin and taking a scalp. It won't be all our own way, you'd imagine.
No, it will not be. No. You look at, they were unlucky. Only for a bit of penalty magic, they would have beaten France, and that's in France, in Stade de France. I think that game, which was, quite a composed performance from Australia, very much controlled the game, and France were in big trouble, but Penaud did what Penaud does, just a kind of one attacker against three defenders, and he somehow manages to score, which he's been doing for the last number of years. But Australia, then they probably change up a lot, and obviously Italy are showing better form than probably anticipated, and they turn over Australia. So their coaching group would be very impressive in Australia with Dave Rennie and Larry Fisher. Larry would have a lot of, I suppose, ins on the Irish team and know them very well from his time in Munster and what makes Irish people tick. So the one thing about Australia is that they're very good. So I think what they'll need to probably get right, they need to be disciplined to make a game of it. If they can be disciplined, I think they probably have the rugby. But when Ireland put them, I suppose, in a squeeze, can they handle that mentally, or will they opt out with penalties? And penalties is field positions of pressure, and pressure usually, obviously it didn't in the Fiji game result in points, but in the South African game and previous to that, it results in points.
Ronan, great stuff as always. We'll have to get you back on again soon and get the Adele out of you, maybe, if you have a bit of time to practice between now and then.
No chance. See you, lads.
Great stuff. Thanks, Ronan.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate that. 8:20 on this Friday morning here on OTB AM, brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent Mo. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. Up next, Alan Quinlan is live in studio to preview Ireland's huge test against Australia tomorrow night at Dublin. First, though, here's Brian O'Driscoll telling us why he thinks Jimmy O'Brien is a future option at 10. Back after this.
Do we have any Hugo Keenan substitute replacement backup?
Is it Jimmy O'Brien? No. Is he now all of a sudden the guy that we have comfort with? I think he's a lovely, lovely footballer. The one really interesting question, I had a friend text me after the South African game, and he said, there's been so many heirs to the throne, but is Jimmy O'Brien the heir to the Johnny Sexton throne? He played 10 for Newbridge in school. It feels like he could play anywhere across the back line because he's a footballer. He could play wing, full back, centre. We've seen, you'd have to imagine if you gave him a run of games at 10, he'd be incredibly proficient. Now, maybe that's a stretch. I don't know, is that something that would interest him in any shape or form? I don't know whether he can goal kick or not, but that's just another added thought to inclusion within a World Cup squad. Is there a chance that he could play 10 in one of the early World Cup games if he really had to, or if there was an injury to Sexton or to Carberry, could he fit in there? And if so, well, he's the perfect hybrid player that is going to get selected on this World Cup team squad, provided he stays fit and he continues in this kind of rich vein of form that he's in. But yet it's more challenging for him to actually get selected in the starting 15.
22 minutes past 8 on this Friday morning's OTB. I'm delighted to say Alan Quinlan has joined myself and Gavin in studio. Morning, Quinny.
Morning, lads. How are you?
Keeping well. It's been a good week. We were talking to Ron there, but Johnny Sexton on the World Rugby Player of the Year nominees front. Always nice to get the individual lads, and Josh van der Fleer and Johnny and Andy Farrell all getting some credit from their fellow players. Nice to see.
Yeah, it is. It's brilliant for them to be recognised and their achievements. I think very special. We had it in probably the last time it happened. We were in this situation was 2018, and when Joe Schmidt got Coach of the Year, Johnny got Player of the Year, and the team got Team of the Year as well. So it is brilliant recognition for a fantastic year they've had. I suppose the only blemish on that run was in Paris against a brilliant French side. They lost by 6 points. I think there was a lot of good stuff came out of that game. They were probably physically, France had a little bit of an edge on them up front, but I suppose I said the only blemish, obviously the first test in New Zealand, but they won the series there. So it's been a very, very positive year. I could probably keep repeating this. I think the players are very conscious, and the coaches as well, of too much hype around it as well, because I suppose nobody predicted that he'd go to the World Cup and win it in 2019, or got too carried away, even though some accusations maybe from people on the outside that Ireland got complacent and stuff. But I think they'll be better equipped, and you've got to deal with success in, I think if you're even telling any kids about winning trophies or winning awards, that you try not to get complacent and don't get too far ahead of yourself. You still got to go to training next week and and do the job. You score 4 goals in one match and one Sunday morning, and you think it's going to happen every week. That sport doesn't work like that. So these guys are playing at the top level, but it's lovely recognition for him, and I'm really pleased for Andy Farrell, because I've huge respect for him. And obviously when you work in the media and you've got to analyse matches and talk about them, I'd find it very hard to say anything bad about Andy Farrell. Obviously you've got to critique things and critique performances, and when you're in top jobs like that, it goes with the territory that your team has to be critiqued if they don't play well. And he got a bit of flack at the start, and Andy, Mike Catt as well did, with some of the performances, but taking over from Joe and going into that role as the head coach himself, he's an inspirational fella, and he's the kind of fella who goes, well, if he just kind of takes it as he goes, and he's very much a here and now fella who wants to try and enjoy the moment. But having played a top level sport the way he did, probably one of the greatest rugby league players ever, hard as nails, and he's just a very humble fella. So I think it's great for him, and it's great recognition for what he's done with this Irish side, and also for Johnny Sexton, to get a nomination again. I think probably after that World Cup and maybe during that year, people questioned him, and a lot of people thought that the age factor was getting there, but his resurgence has been nothing short of remarkable, really. For Josh van der Fleer as well, I think the improvements in his game, the physicality, the edge that he has, the carries, and the consistency has just gone to a different level. So you couldn't argue against their nominations, and it's lovely for them. And then for Dan Sheehan and Mac Hansen to be nominated as best newcomers as well. So I don't think anybody's going to be getting carried away and saying Ireland still have a very challenging situation. And I think the one thing that we all want them to do is go beyond the World Cup, a quarter-final. And so there's a lot of challenges ahead. And when you're on top, Shane, everybody, tries to knock you. So what will Wales be thinking, come that first game in the start of February in the Six Nations? So I think Ireland will be better prepared mentally. But ultimately, no matter what they do between here and the World Cup in France next year, it's still going to be incredibly difficult to go beyond that quarter-final. So we may be sitting here thinking, God, we haven't gone beyond it again. But I think it's the same in life. If you look too far ahead and don't enjoy the moment, so I think they've got to enjoy the moment. And do we need a reality check before then? We probably get one or two anyway, and maybe we'll be in. But if we're well equipped, but the year they've had has been pretty special. I think I'll certainly not forget being up close and personal with what happened in New Zealand over the summer. It was remarkable.
Is the experience before 2019, that World Cup, when obviously Ireland were top of the world after beating the All Blacks in 2018, is that the reality check they need? In the sense that can you see things that they'll learn from that? Because obviously Farrell was adjacent to that whole experience as well.
Yeah. A lot of the players and some of the coaching staff as well. I think Paul O'Connell has come into the mix now. I think knowing Paul so as well as I do and been close to him in dressing rooms for so long, he has this incredible intrigue to leave no stone unturned. And then he has his own presence, the way he can inspire players. I think he's made a lot of improvements and helped probably a lot of the Irish forwards. A lot of them have publicly spoken about that. So I think that whole experience is important. So maybe we don't need to lose games in the Six Nations. Maybe we need to go and win a Grand Slam, and we've got France and England and Dublin, and historically these are the kind of Six Nations that the big two are coming to Dublin, so you kind of think it puts you in a better position, but you just never know. I think obviously you want to try and build that resilience, and I think if you focus too much on your mistakes and your past mistakes in your life and in sport, they can kind of hold you back a little bit. You have to be aware and conscious of them, and I think Gavin, they're going to be absolutely very, very conscious of them. But sometimes games and sport and things are out of your control. You can get a bit of bad luck, you can get some refereeing decisions go against you, you can get a couple of injuries. Ireland need a little bit of luck, and if they can get to France next year in a good position, because if you think of 2019, they had an incredible start. They beat Scotland convincingly. So I thought they were kind of in a great position, and then what happened against Japan kind of derailed things, and it kind of exposed some of the issues around probably the expansion of their game. I think to be able to play a couple of different ways and to add to their attack was probably something that if they had their time back, they would probably look to improve and have a different game plan in the locker. But that probably is the reality check. Yeah,
it's a funny one, and like, you're trying to look ahead to the Six Nations but not get too carried away and not think too far beyond it, but it's impossible.
And look, there's an argument to say, Shane, why are Ireland number one when you look at the list of who France have beaten this year?
Yeah,
they've beaten everyone. To win a Grand Slam, I think their tour is obviously different in being in Japan over the summer, and then to beat Australia, to beat South Africa. I think probably Ireland have it because of what they did in New Zealand, those two tests, when you kind of sometimes the point system, you could argue, is a little bit skewed, but obviously if you beat New Zealand and I don't know how the point system works, but if you beat New Zealand 2 weeks in a row in New Zealand, I presume it kind of enhances the points you get. So like, I genuinely don't think they think they're the best team in the world and that they would get complacent. I think they realise we're probably 2 or 3 injuries away from being 4th or 5th in the world.
Well, the Fiji game showed it.
Yeah, but you know what? It's a very difficult one, Shane, with they're potential banana skins and they're hard to get the emotion right, and I think it does show. And I think what exposed us a little bit and was our reality check, as you asked about Gavin, was that New Zealand game in the RDS. That was a big opportunity, and we were second best in everything in that game. So if you go down the depth chart, maybe if you really go down the depth chart and get a couple of injuries, and if you think if Johnny Sexton doesn't play now, what do we do? I think I feel bad for Joey Carberry, because I would have been thinking get him through Fiji, have a good win, and start him against Australia.
Yeah,
give him more exposure there. It's been so stop-start with Joey in the last couple of years.
You know what Sexton can do.
He hasn't got a run of 10 games in a row where you've gone, God, let's analyse those 10 games and say why 8 of them were brilliant. And he's grown in the role. And no matter what talent you have, you've got to get out there and play and be exposed to it. He's played in a Munster team that's been, strong one week, weak another week. So we've just got no flow with Joey, and I think he's a wonderful player, and he's very much capable of stepping up to the plate. But we just, unluckily, again, he picks up that head knock last week and is not involved this week. So his next game could be 2 or 3 weeks for Munster, and then you don't know where that's going to be, how many games in a row he'll play. But we are a couple of injuries away from things could be different. So maybe that's me looking at the glass and being uber anxious about, being really conscious of threats and dangers. You have to enjoy it, and I think they're in a really good place. I think all the players say that the camp is a very positive place, and they're enjoying it. So it's good at the moment for sure.
We touched on this with Rog, some interesting comments from Johnny Sexton on his life post playing, I guess, this week, and he was talking about, I think he was asked would he go into coaching himself straight away, and he was saying he doesn't think he'll go into it straight away, and he referenced Rog. He said, his family are settled in Dublin, his kids love it here. I'm not going to do something like Rog has done, which is amazing, go to France, go to New Zealand, come back to France, stay in France. He's been away from Ireland for 10 years. I'm not going to do that. Like, I guess he has options, Johnny. That's the thing, and we don't know what type of coach he's going to be if he wants to head that down that direction. But there's no right or wrong way to go about it. Like, Rog is Roger's recipe for getting into coaching is not necessarily the only way.
That's not the template for everybody, and it wouldn't work. He's a very patient wife and Jess, and a very, for her to go on that adventure and kind of back him. And in fairness, she's incredible with 5 kids as well.
Not easy.
You just think of it. 5 kids moving around all the time. And France is one thing, but going off to New Zealand on 2 stints where they've kind of gone for 6 or 7 months, come back to France and gone again. Yeah, but it's interesting. You think someone like, I always said this about Drico, that surely he'll get into coaching, but you just never know. It depends what presents itself, and when you have young kids, that kind of dictates. You can't just make this decision, and obviously Johnny's wife and his kids will dictate what he does. But you would imagine the most natural transition for him is the Leinster setup, and there's no reason to say that he wouldn't be really successful in it, that he has to go and get this experience everywhere, because he's that type of a character who's probably been, and I've said this about Paul O'Connell before, these guys are coaching as players. They're literally kind of on it week after week about structures, about the type of game you play, the way you need to change things. So they're practically coaches and assistant coaches for a lot of number of years of their careers anyway, because they're all in those leadership roles. So I think obviously for what he's achieved and the type of character he is, you think there's no guarantees that he would be good as regards dealing with people and managing the ups and downs. And some people say it would drive you cuckoo. If you're so engrossed in it, he's got to get a balance. Obviously, when you come out as a player, that sometimes you just gotta, if that it's that emotional roller coaster that you can't affect the decision out on the field. You can only pass on the information and try and prepare a team. So you would have to imagine Johnny would be someone who would find it hard to let go, because and I hope he's not lost in a game, because I would imagine he could be a very, very successful coach.
Is there a chance he's retiring too soon? I mean, you mentioned the short list there. You'll have a much greater insight than it to me, but to my amateur eye, he's still sensational. I mean,
I would imagine if he goes back to his wife and says, well, I'm going to give it another year after next year, there could be a conversation about that. But
we can't be too far from one more year.
He's put the decision to go after the World Cup.
He could decide to keep going. But
if next year. But I think there has to be a time. Look, I don't know. Of course he could. If he's in good shape next year, well, maybe he'll go on for another year and play till he's 40 or 2 years or whatever. I don't know. But you think at that age that if he can get out of the game healthy, he's played in a very position that's he's been targeted a lot. He's had a fair few bangs and knocks over the years, and he loves the physicality of the game as well. And I've always said this to when you're out in that adrenaline rush and it's something that's just ingrained in you, it's very hard to let go of it. So Johnny's got to be comfortable himself, and it would be wonderful, obviously, if he could finish after a World Cup on a high. And I know you still don't get a trophy if you get to semi-final, but we're probably all worn out of being kind of beaten with the stick of the quarter-finals. But sometimes you could say, well, quarter-final, semi-final, it doesn't matter, you still not win the trophy. But I think Ireland get judged on that. And
it's like Roger Bannister breaking the 4-minute mile. Like, we don't actually know if we can get to a semi-final until we do it. We haven't done it.
Yeah.
We need to just do it and get it over the line once.
Yeah, for sure.
So hopefully we can do it. You're talking about the emotional roller coaster of being a coach. I guess it's the same for a director of rugby, and it's emotional roller coaster watching Rassie Erasmus's Twitter feed, constantly scrolling, and there's excuses after matches. The word dose comes to mind when you're looking at his Twitter feed. Like a fairly unprecedented move by World Rugby to give him a 2-match ban for his social media posts, but I don't think anyone is really complaining. Rassie can't really complain either.
It's, you know what, I the first line stuff, some part of me thought this is refreshing and this needs to be addressed. Also in the knowledge and being very conscious of the fact that you're dealing with human beings who are trying to do their best.
Yeah.
And the one thing I see a lot of attached with the comments and stuff online about Rassie now is that there's these conspiracy theories that World Rugby are working against South Africa by some of the fans, and you can go and see them yourselves. It's quite frustrating to see that. And I know a lot of South African people and a lot of good rugby South African people, and they're very knowledgeable on the game, but there's another element of them that actually are kind of blinded a little bit by the effects of this. So, at the start I thought definitely the line stuff was born out of absolute frustration, and but the reality is, whether people agree with me or not, is you could look at every game of rugby week after week in underage games, club games, schools games, that a lot of the kind of decisions that are made are interpretations, particularly around the breakdown. Did the guy lock onto the ball? Was he on his feet? Did his elbow touch the ground? Where did he come from? Did he come in from the side? There's so many kind of multi-layers of behaviours that it's very, very difficult at times. And a lot of the time we've kind of gone with we just have to go with the decision that's of the referee, his interpretation at that time. Just look at scrums. You look at the international scrums at the weekend. Scrums will go down 2 or 3 times, and referee will penalise one side. You look at the replay, and as a commentator, and you go, it's the actual opposition fella that lost his footing or pulled his elbow down. So you could nearly go through every ruck situation or collision or physical situation where there's a number of players and pick people out. It's a very, very difficult job. And I played at a high level where I had that frustration as a player, and sometimes I kind of questioned referees and I questioned decisions, particularly if I was involved in that breakdown. So it's a very difficult thing. And I understand the frustration. And there's certain games over the years, and you could pick lots of games out. For me, as a former Munster player and as a former Irish player, and covering a lot of Irish games, Munster games and Irish province in the last number of years, I'm often commentating games and I'm going, my God, that's a blatant, that should be the other way, so there was a couple of decisions last week for Wayne Barnes that the possible double movement, it's very, very marginal. Again, if it's given as a double movement, you're saying fair enough. The try is given, you're kind of going, it's probably 50-50. Isn't that incredibly hard when you think of, there's actually decisions, you're doing the football, you're going to Qatar. It's very rare, bar the VAR decisions, that there'll be 50-50 decisions. It's either a tackle, a yellow card or not, or a player's are to bundle another player over. It's much more, it's probably easier to decide on the decision. Of course, there's decisions in football that you're going to go, and particularly around the VAR stuff, that it's so marginal that the goal could be given or could be taken away. But there's a lot of that in the rugby, and it's difficult. And I just think Rassie, it was probably unnecessary the last couple of weeks. Come back into the game. What happened with the lines, the videos last year and stuff, just come back with a clean slate and put that behind us. And because there's a real kind of quirky madness about Rassie Erasmus that attracts me to obviously what he's done with South Africa. When you think, Shane, we beat them 38-3 in 2017. They were in turmoil. They take over Jack Nienaber himself, and all the challenges that the South African people have, the crime rate there, so many difficulties that they have to experience throughout their life. So it was a wonderful story, them going to the World Cup, winning it. They've had brilliant success, but if you're coming out in every game and you're this week, Rassie said he wasn't actually referencing the referee, but
he was. He appeared to be.
The problem here you have with social media, and it's the same for young people and people in sport, and when you go in after a match and you pick up your phone and you look at it, and people can judge you unfairly, negatively. They don't know the person. So the problem for Wayne Barnes after last week, and the reality is that anybody doesn't know that he's receiving death threats. His wife is receiving abuse online. So when it gets to that situation, whether Rassie is right or wrong, he's part of something that's brought on an incredible amount of abuse to somebody who I believe has a lot of integrity, Wayne Barnes. And Leinster fans could argue and say, well, one or two decisions in that La Rochelle final should have gone the other way. But if you look back at the Leinster-La Rochelle game, you could look at some stuff in the first half or certain areas in the game that Leinster should have been penalised.
Yeah.
And that's my point. You know, Ireland lost to Japan in the World Cup in 2019. And that game, I know for a fact that there was 15 to 20 decisions that could have went the other way for Ireland in that game. And they were acknowledged behind the scenes through the proper protocols with Angus Gardner's decisions.
But that's the important thing, that there is a forum behind closed doors. Like if a coach is frustrated at a refereeing decision, they have a way of raising it. Like they don't have to go public
Gavin, some
like
of the
Erasmus
fans
did.
online now, and in fairness, it's great to see all the social media activity, and you know, rugby's trying to grow as a sport, and it'll always be way behind, you know, football, which is a real global sport. And it's great to see people involved in it and having their opinions. But some of the opinions are nasty. A lot of them can be nasty, blinded. And their argument is, we need to know why these referees aren't accountable. But they are held accountable, but they're not put out in the public square and you know, hanged on a Friday afternoon, like in front of everybody for the baying crowd to throw stones at them. We can't have that. But they are, you know, punished internally, i.e. they don't get certain games. They've got to be demoted if they have a really bad game. There's a certain part of me would love a little bit more honesty and maybe, but if we open that door of a referee being interviewed after a game and or you know, speaking during the week about it, it's risky. It's very, very dangerous because the baying mob will stone them. But I just think it's when Wayne Barnes and his wife have been subject to online abuse like that and threatened, and some of it has been really, really nasty. People can see that. And whether Rassie this week or not, in his own opinion, believes that he was aiming digs at Wayne Barnes, his social media stuff has caused that situation. So it's a pity because he's actually, you know, we're talking about Rassie Erasmus video clips now, not Rassie Erasmus incredible achievements. So
is that part of the point? I mean, the results haven't been great on South Africa's.
Listen, if I was, I'm talking about Ireland there a second ago. If I was in South Africa's position, I would be very, very comfortable with where they're at. They have incredible depth. Obviously, their A team were beaten by Munster down in Cork, but I think they, you know, if they lose 4 or 5 players, they can. I know the quality, we don't know sometimes would be the exact same, but you're handpicking some forwards and props and hookers and things, and you're kind of, Jesus, that's strength, that's power, that's get them up to speed with the systems and all that kind of stuff, and they're in a really good place. But such a big pool of players to pick from, the European-based players in Japan, they could pick a whole different squad. So there's a huge amount of depth. They're in a good place with what they've done, and I think Rassie Erasmus and Jack Nienaber obviously winning that World Cup and where they're at the moment, they're in a really strong position.
Before we let you go, Quinny, score prediction for tomorrow night? The first time the
I'm not
Wallabies
sure
are
about score prediction. I would think it'd be a high scoring game, right, if the weather, there's a bit of rain predicted, and it's heavy rain on Saturday night, so for anyone going to the Aviva, put on a coat. I just feel that Ireland will be pretty conscious. You're talking about kind of wake up call. There'll be a reaction from Australia. And they're a very, very skillful, dangerous side if they're allowed to play. So I think Ireland have got to impose themselves a little bit physically. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to, interested and hoping that Stuart McCluskey can, you know, it didn't happen for him last week against Fiji, but it didn't happen for the rest of the squad, that he can get a real opportunity. It's an exciting game because I think Ireland won't want to wet either. But I think Ireland will be, you know, rather, given a score prediction, I think you would think on paper Ireland are 8 to 10 points victors here. But
we take it.
it's a dangerous one. And Australia have shown that when they get going, they scored incredible tries in the Tri-Nations. So we've got to be wary of that. But I think Ireland will win the game.
Lovely. Should be a decent atmosphere as well with the PM kick-off.
And good luck in Qatar.
Thanks. I think I might need it.
A couple of 5-star hotel stadiums there.
The dream.
It's phenomenal. I was looking at some of the videos the other day.
Yeah. Hopefully it goes well. I'd like to see Brazil win it. I think. Who do you think's going to win it, Quinny?
Well, I go on holidays in Portugal every year, so I love the Portuguese people. So,
Right.
But
You have to go with them.
there's 3 United players there. that kind of wavers
Strong
me as a
Liverpool man.
Liverpool fan. But
Yeah.
France.
You've got Jota as well.
France, yeah, we got Jota, of course. France, Brazil, or Portugal.
Fair, France.
One of the 3.
So you're firmly sitting on the fence.
I know, but they're 3.
No,
if I was
to be
pick
fair.
3 teams, and if you pin me to it, I'd say Portugal.
Okay, we're going Portugal.
I
Lovely
want
stuff.
to win. I'm not saying they will.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. Quinny, great stuff as always. Thanks
Cheers,
a million for
thanks,
coming in. Much appreciated. 8:49 a.m. on this Friday morning's OTB AM. Here's what we've got coming up on OTB Sports Radio across the rest of the day from 10:15 a.m. The Crappy Quiz is live. 1 o'clock OTB Gold. Joe meeting Ruby Walsh. From 3 p.m. it's the Donegal Mount Rushmore. Very fitting for the week that's in it, with Michael Murphy hanging up the boots. 4 p.m. Team 33's League of Ireland legend Liam Coyle. From 6 p.m. it's OTB Gold, an Irish football special with Given, Quinn, McAteer, all with Kilbane. You can follow OTB across all our social channels and subscribe to the OTB Podcast Network for all the very best in the latest sports content. We'll be back after this ad break with the sports pages. First, though, our own Nathan Murphy spoke with Stewie Byrne at the Aviva Stadium last night after the match to discuss what went wrong for Stephen Kenny's side against the Norwegians. Back after this.
Why are Ireland conceding so many goals so often from positions where they should do better? Is that working the training ground?
No, I think that should be a reminder to the team that you just don't concede sloppy goals. There should always be a voice or voices in those situations that's roaring out. No easy free kicks, no easy headers, that kind of stuff. It was John Egan for the first goal who lost Ostergaard. Now John has been so good for us. He's the captain. You wouldn't associate normally with that. And I think that's a goal that he's just going to put his hand up and saying, I got done, But unfortunately, not just he's not the only one that's gotten done. I thought we were poor for the second goal as well. And it's I suppose it's the balance of the team is still in flux a little bit, whereby we're trying to expand on our possession-based game. We're trying to be a little bit more creative, be a little bit more dynamic, be a little bit more attacking, and the result of that is that we're taking our eye a little bit off the ball when it comes to the basics. And you only have to look at this game and the Armenian game, and you realise the 4 goals we've conceded in the 4 games were goals we never conceded before.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
OTB Sports Rugby.
When you dream as a young fella, you want to play for Ireland, you want to play for Leinster, you want to play for the Lions. I never even dreamed of Captain Ireland.
What did you dream?
Spuds, gravy, mother's Sunday roast. Just playing for Ireland, you know what I mean? It was never...
Subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
OTB AM with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent modes.
8:52 a.m. on Friday morning's OTB AM with myself and Gavin Cooney live in studio. Gavin, we should touch before we move on the Cristiano Ronaldo Part 2 drama with Piers Morgan. Some interesting comments from the second part. He's talking about an offer that came from Saudi Arabia, massive, multi-million, 300 million, more than that, from Saudi Arabia to go and play there. Calling the press garbage once again. Talking about the criticism that he gets in the press. He says his mood is on the World Cup now. He doesn't know what the situation is with United when he comes
for
back.
For a man to feel like he's getting criticism from the press in this, the most sycophantic interview, I'd say interview, it wasn't really an interview.
Yes.
Piers Morgan sat opposite Ronaldo and just aggressively agreed with everything he said.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. There was actually a clip, I don't know if we have the clip, we'll bring it to you in a minute, but there was a clip where he's kind of, it's the most cringy 24 seconds you'll ever hear on live television with Piers Morgan. But
well, is it as bad as Piers Morgan's pinned tweet? Have you seen this?
I haven't seen this.
People will wonder, how did Piers Morgan get this exclusive interview with Cristiano Ronaldo? It's a years long ploy of sycophancy.
The pinned tweet is them comparing abs.
Oh no!
At some point, I don't know. I haven't watched.
This is the previous.
Yeah, this is when he was at Juventus. But yeah, apparently Ronaldo said something about, and he did it. You know why Ronaldo did it? It was just like to get praise for his own abs. It's just like, you're in good shape. Piers. I was just like, nothing like you, Cristiano.
There was the start of the interview even on Wednesday night, the part one, where he was like, Piers first asks him, why did you decide to do this interview now? And he said, well, first because I really like you, Piers. And then Piers responds, well, I really like you too. It was just like, lads, get a room. I mean, come on. You're supposed to be an interview here. We can actually listen to that section of the interview. This is from last night's part 2.
More pounds in the bank or more Instagram followers?
It's a good question. Probably similar. I don't know. Probably similar.
I'm just trying to work out how Wayne Rooney could hate you even more, and probably that's the answer.
Well, not only him. Imagine the rest of the rats. They're going to criticize me too. But it's good. It's good.
The rest of the rats. Is he calling Wayne Rooney a rat there?
He must be. Now, in fairness, like in terms of the answer to the question, Instagram followers or money in the bank, I'd have pretty similar answer. Although we're dealing with slightly smaller figures. Like, I mean. That's quite a grim interview altogether, I have to say.
Yeah.
It's just, Ronaldo's now kind of walled off in his own ego. And his inability to take criticism is absolutely extraordinary. They're rats because they've been dared to criticise him.
Yeah.
And by criticise, I mean accurately report what they're seeing on the pitch. And you will notice that the people that he says he still has respect for are Roy Keane and Rio Ferdinand, who the best players I played with, but also the ex-players who continue to support him publicly in the media.
Yeah, no coincidence there.
Yeah, like, I mean...
There was even one moment, and Piers Morgan, of course, we all know is an Arsenal fan, staunch Arsenal fan, and he was asked last night about Arsenal, and Ronaldo says, I really like Arsenal, I really like their coach, and Piers then goes, would you like to see them win the league? And he says, I would. Obviously not.
Come and get me, please.
If not, essentially, he was like, if not Manchester United to win the league, I'd like to see Arsenal win it. I really like the team, blah blah blah. United fans are probably sitting there going, you just don't be starting to praise Arsenal.
Yeah.
United-Arsenal rivalry has been going for years. You don't, as a current United player, praise Arsenal in any way. Come back when you're a pundit in 5 years' time and say what you like about them. You really like their coach, but
it's almost as if Ronaldo would put his own self-interest above the interest of Manchester United.
And he's cozying up to Piers by saying that as well.
Yeah,
I want to get the interviewer
great
on side.
line. I don't know, did you listen to the Stand with Eamon Dunphy this week? Liam Brady had a great line that he has 2 main regrets from his career, one of which was a failure to play with Ireland in a major tournament, and the second is the fact that Piers Morgan is an Arsenal fan.
Brilliant. Like when you're lumped in with Piers Morgan as probably one of the most famous Arsenal fans, you're like, oh Jesus, you don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
He was even asking Ronaldo about he was asked about the refusal to come on in the last few minutes against Tottenham, and he said, for example, in the national team, if the coach wanted to give me 5 minutes because someone is injured or if they really needed me, then I will help, but in that way against Spurs I felt provoked. The empathy doesn't exist. I mean,
so you felt provoked. Sorry, the idea that he was going to be brought on for the last few minutes is being provoked.
He almost felt like Ten Hag was getting at him by bringing him on for the last few minutes.
And do you think he was? Do we think that Ten Hag, because I feel like Ten Hag was handed a very difficult political challenge here with Ronaldo, and I feel he may have played it very well.
Yeah.
Do we think that he knows that Ronaldo must be saying this if he believes it. So maybe Ten Hag has played this. He's just like, I will provoke Ronaldo by bringing him on, and then in the hope that he might do exactly as I want him to do and walk down the tunnel, which he then did. I just think Erik Ten Hag, the manager's position hasn't been a very strong one at Manchester United for some time because of the dysfunction everywhere. I think Ten Hag is in a stronger position as a United manager, the strongest in terms of support outside the club and within it, the most powerful in that position since Ferguson, and I think that's a good thing. It's ironic, United constantly harken back to the idea of Alex Ferguson. Signing Ronaldo is harken back to the era of Alex Ferguson, when they forgot the one rule worth remembering from Alex Ferguson is to make the manager the most important person at the club. And ironically, I think it might have all happened kind of accidentally, but I think that's the position in which they finally ended up.
Yeah, I think Cristiano Ronaldo just can't deal with the fact that he's maybe not at the level that he once was.
Oh, completely. The whole interview is just this guy trying to come to terms with the fact that his body can't do what it used to do. So it's kind of sad in that respect, and it's also interesting in terms of a study of fame, really. There's American writer Ben Lerner has a great line that if fame doesn't change you, it changes the people around you. I think this is probably proof of that, because he obviously has just yes men around him who do nothing but praise him, and then any kind of criticism or any criticism / like obvious analysis and fair-minded analysis punctures through as almost kind of heresy in his world.
Bizarre. It'll be very interesting to see what happens beyond the World Cup, as Cristiano Ronaldo says and Bruno Fernandes says. Their focus is fully on Portugal, so it'll be interesting to see when Old Trafford returns what happens there. Approaching a minute to 9 on this Friday morning's OTB. I'm delighted to say Donegal's Ryan McHugh joins us on the line this morning. Morning, Ryan. How are things?
I'm very good, lads. How are you?
Keeping well. A big day, a red letter day for Donegal yesterday. A sad day with Michael Murphy finally hanging up his boots at the age of 33. 15 or 16 years service with the county. I think you've described him online as the greatest player you've seen in a Donegal jersey. Quite a big moment.
Yeah, it is sad, but I think over the last, suppose, number of hours, and days, suppose, looking back on highlights and of his career and stuff, just what a player he was, and I think not just what a player for the people that knew him very closely, pardon me, and got to work with him very closely, what a person, he's led our county since 2011, I think he made his debut in 2007, but when he was named captain by Jim McGuinness in 2011, how he led his county to the heights that we got is phenomenal, it's a sad day and we'll miss him hugely, but just looking back in his career, what a career he had.
I mean, we were talking yesterday, myself and Jared, about the fact that I think Donegal had 5 Ulster titles and 1 All-Ireland before Murphy started playing, and another 5 Ulsters and another 1 All-Ireland during his career. So, I mean, it's no coincidence. He was just a powerhouse.
He was, I think as you touched on a wee bit there, it is no coincidence that it wasn't just Michael, but Michael was such a huge part of I suppose from that time, 2011 onwards, of what Donegal achieved. It was Michael who was leading the whole thing, and to do it at such a young age, he was only 21 at that time as well. I think a lot of people forget about that. He was only 21 when he was named captain of Donegal. I think that's extremely unique, and to keep it to the day that he retired is phenomenal, but just the way he led. Going to training every single night, he was the player that you looked up to. Every single player, no matter if you were the oldest player in the squad or the youngest player in the squad, he was always the player that you looked up to. I know from my own point of view, when I came into the dressing room first in 2013, I had so many role models. From watching Donegal and growing up, going to all the games, had so many role models and get to play alongside them and train alongside them. But as I got into it, he was definitely the one man that I would have learned so much off. I always would have learned so much off from being a wing back off Caradesi, frankly, and these boys. But Michael was the one that I always tried to copy, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch, just the way he lived his life. It was so professional. He lived his life to the letter of the law to give himself the best chance to play the best he could for his county, whether that was going to training on Tuesday or Thursday night or that was in a championship match at the weekend. He gave himself the best opportunity, and I think the way he played showed that.
What was he like in the dressing room, Ryan? I mean, we know he was a leader from a young age in that dressing room, and when he becomes captain in 2011, leads them to the All Ireland the following year. Was he someone who said few words in the dressing room, as you say, led by example, or what were the general lessons you learned from him?
I think he got the mixture right. He spoke when he needed to speak, and he led by playing when he, I think and a lot of players will understand. There's a big saying in all sports, but you are what you train, and Michael Murphy was the hardest trainer in Donegal every single night, and I think that was what separated him from every other, not just Donegal players, but I can only speak for Donegal players, but I think that's what separated him. He played, or he trained, I should say, as if he was playing the All-Ireland final and that day, every single night of training. And I think that's how he brought so many of us with him, the other Donegal players, In terms of sitting in the dressing room, he's just a great lad, everyone got on the best of him. I think, he'll have best friends, and we're all best friends with him for life, but he did lay down the law when he needed it, when he had to get on to players, or if there was any problems, it was Michael that you went to, and then Michael would obviously relay it back to the management team, but I think that Michael's biggest strength is, I would always go back to that, and what his biggest strength was just the way he trained every single night of the week, and again, I go back to the other one, not just on the training pitch, how he lived his life. I heard a saying a couple of years ago. It was an S&C coach of ours, Aaron Kyles, always said. He said, "It's not about the 2 hours that you train; it's the other 22 hours of the day what you do." And Michael loved them other 22 hours of the day so professionally, and that gave him the best chance to train, which obviously gave him the best chance to play at the weekend.
Ryan, you mentioned that he wasn't afraid to lay down the law. Were you ever on the receiving end of it?
There have been a couple of times, not just simple things, not anything major, but. you know, if he had to call you out, he definitely wasn't shy in calling you out, you know, as all players are, and I can imagine every other teams are. You know, he was our captain, so he's our leader. I think there's not many other teams that can say that they probably had the same captain from 2011, you know, since the first day I came in 2013. I've had the same captain since. It's going to be a strange year next year whenever the captain's announced in the Donegal squad who's going to be, you know, but I've had the same captain, and I think every single player in Donegal wouldn't have had it any other way, because we knew Michael was our leader. He was the man we went to. As I said, when times got tough, he was the man we looked at, and he always stood up. So he did, you know, he never shied away from it. Probably wasn't easy at times, you know, but he never shied away from it, you know.
Even Eamon McGee writing yesterday, Ryan, in the paper, and he's again someone who knows him very well, and he said he never saw it coming. And even in his own statement, he talked about, you know, speaking, I guess, in the dressing room after the defeat to Armagh and Clonus last year. And he said, the last time we sat together in the changing rooms in Clonus, I told my teammates that whatever happened in the future, Donegal will always go on. Don't know if there was a hint in that maybe at what his thinking was, but were you surprised at the announcement? Like, did you see it coming?
I was a wee bit shocked, I suppose, when it announced. Right, might give us a ring, give a lot of the boys a ring just to tell us all beforehand, you know. So I got chatting to him. So disappointed and a wee bit shocked, you know. Everyone thought Michael Murphy was going to go on forever, you know. As unfortunately, all good things do have to come to an end. But yeah, I suppose going back to the Armagh game at the end, he as always, when on losing day and going out of the championship, you know, the captain of the team always speaks, and he touched on that there will be a Donegal team going out, but definitely at that time I thought that Michael Murphy would be playing full forward for us next year, you know. But it was a huge shock. So it was. Again, it's not something that I seen coming when I was chatting to him all throughout, you know, the last number of months during the club championship stuff. Definitely thought that he was going to be playing, but as I said, all good things have to come to an end, and I've really enjoyed, you know, over the last number of hours and days, I suppose, since he has announced it, just looking back in his career. Because there is stuff at the start of his career that, you know, I was probably a wee bit younger that you would not remember and stuff like that, but looking back on it, just what a career he had. I think there's not much he hasn't won. You know, he's won the Irelands, he's won Ulsters, he's won All-Stars, he's won club championships. I think I've seen, unfortunately, Kilcar point of view, we were on the receiving end one, but I think he's played in 3 county championships and Kilcar finals, and he's been or Glenswell, I should say, have won 3 county championships in Donegal, and he's been man of the match in every one of them, you know. So what he's given to his county and his club is nothing short of phenomenal.
It's mad. Like, you just think of the success he's had, and such a leader as well in the moments, as you say, that have kind of cropped up on social media in the last number of days. Like, there's the goal in that 2012 All-Ireland final against Mayo. There was the keeping the ball at the sideline for the Kevin Cassidy point against Kildare in 2014. There was a lovely one for DCU as well in the Sigerson, where he kind of dummy solos over Rory O'Carroll's head and dinks it over with the outside of his right foot. Like, so many unbelievable moments. Like, anything that stands out to you particularly as kind of the highlights of his career?
I suppose from a Donegal point of view, it would probably be the 2012 All-Ireland final against Mayo. You know, remember going up to watch that game. Phenomenal, you know, just a phenomenal performance, you know, to get off to that, and by getting to know the boys and getting to know Michael over the next number of years, you know, how many times they actually practiced that in training and worked on that in training, and for it to come off on the biggest day and in our calendar, you know, I suppose that would definitely be the biggest one. But the amount of moments and great moments that Michael has given to people at Donegal, you know, it's just nothing short of phenomenal. As I said, you know, every single year when the going tough, it was always Michael that stood up for us, and we always rode in behind him. But I think from a Donegal point of view, it would definitely be the 2012 the goal, and to see him go up the steps in Croke Park to lift Sam Maguire was something special.
It was funny, like we were talking on the show yesterday about you know, even what he's like off the pitch, Ryan. Like, you know, the fact that he has sponsored the Donegal Senior Championship, you know, since his mid-20s. There was the great story from Gordon Manning in the Irish Times yesterday, where he was named man of the match for Donegal in the win over Tyrone in late of May last year. Finished his interview with TG Carr and walks towards the cameraman Brendan O'Donnell, and everyone in Donegal will be familiar with Brendan's brother Michael Jack O'Donnell, who had a well-known Donegal photographer who had passed away at the start of that month. And Michael had obviously got to know him over the years, Michael Murphy, and walks towards Brendan, his brother, and hands him his Man of the Match award and says it's for his brother. Like, it's just little moments like that, I'm sure, that stand out and kind of speak volumes as to Michael Murphy the person.
Yeah, no, exactly. As I said, he is a phenomenal player and a phenomenal leader, and everything to do with Donegal GA. He's led the whole thing, but off the field, you couldn't meet a nicer person. So you couldn't a more genuine person. As you said, simple wee things like that just separates him, I think, from other people. Michael Jack would have been at every single Donegal game. He would have been at the few training sessions, even coming up to games, working for the numerous papers and stuff, taking pictures, and just simple things like that, that a lot of people wouldn't think of, that Michael definitely thinks of, that separates him, as I said, from other people. And there's numerous stories like that off the top of the head. I can't think of one, but there is numerous stories like that, different things after games. Obviously, Michael was always the biggest profile in Donegal, and Michael could be standing for hours after games taking pictures with young supporters and young fans on the pitch when we're all in the shower or getting changed and heading away for post-match meal and stuff like that. Michael would be outstanding taking pictures with kids, and never shied away from anything like that, so he didn't. So definitely couldn't speak enough or highly enough about Michael off the pitch. As I said, from my point of view, when I came in, he was the one person that I always looked to try copy. Just the way that he did live his life off the pitch was phenomenal, and he'll be a massive miss. So he will. There's no point beating around the bush. He's going to be a massive miss for Donegal, and not just as a player, but as a person around the dressing room and as a friend, as a close friend to a lot of us. It's going to be a massive miss.
Just looking at Michael's statement here that he released on his retirement, and the last line stood out to me, Ryan, where he said, "Maybe in the years ahead I'll find new ways to offer something more to my home county." Straight away I'm thinking future Donegal manager, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, someone with his leadership qualities, you wouldn't back against it.
No, I definitely wouldn't. I suppose there's always in programmes before games, a lot of players get asked different questions: favourite film, favourite hobbies, blah blah blah, and then there's always one question: who do you think is going to be a future manager in the dressing room? 99% of the players always said Michael, so they did, and the answer so they did. So listen, I definitely think he has so much to offer Donegal. His pride and love for the county. I think I couldn't see him not get involved with Donegal in the future. Whether how long he takes away from the game is completely up to Michael. But definitely can see him in the future, whether that's coaching or management. As his knowledge of the modern game, especially, is second to none. So it is. He's dipped his toes into management not that long ago with ATU it is now, which would have been when Michael was there, LYAT, the college in Letterkenny. He's managed his club, Glenswilly Minor, there. He took Glens's minor team to the championship final there only a couple of weeks ago. So he has dipped his toes into coaching and management. So I definitely can see him, and hopefully from a Donegal point of view again in the very near future getting involved, whether that's coaching or management, and I think he'll be great.
Finally, Ryan, how are you feeling about Donegal's 2023? You've got the Division 1 campaign, of course, first to look forward to, and Paddy Carney and O'Rourke, a new management team in there as well, so exciting times, and look, a very, very competitive Ulster Championship now that Derry and Armagh have stuck the hands up, as well as the likes of Tyrone and Monaghan.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose with Michael's news over the last couple of days, it's been, looking forward to a different way. It's going to be a different Donegal team, so it is. I don't know when's the last time a Donegal team has fielded championship football without Michael. So it's going to be different, but looking forward to it. As a player, that's what you want to do is play games, and I was going through it with a friend of mine there last day, just the amount of games that's actually going to be played next year. So I think it's a really exciting time to be a Gaelic footballer. We always said that's what we want to be doing is playing games and maybe not training as much, but getting in as many games. And we're going to get the opportunity to do that next year with the new format. So it is. So listen, it's only around the corner. We've Kerry in the first match. Nice easy start for us playing Kerry in the first match up in Donegal. But I'm looking forward to it. There'll be a huge crowd. So they will. Anytime Kerry comes to town, there's always a huge crowd. So getting back into the run of things now over the next couple of weeks and trying to just put ourselves in the best position going forward. As you said, it's not going to be easy. The league's going to be difficult. The Ulster Championship's going to be difficult. And then I suppose with the unknown, with the new format after that. So it's exciting times as a Gaelic footballer in general, to see how the new format and everything works. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm really excited. As I said, it's going to be a wee bit different in a Donegal dressing room next year without Michael. But as we touched on, unfortunately, all good things come to an end. So, and as Michael said himself, after our Armagh game, there's always going to be a Donegal team going forward, and a Donegal team, no matter who's playing, will go out and represent the county the best way possible. So from a Donegal player, we're looking forward to it, and hopefully we can put our best foot forward.
Absolutely. Ryan, you've been great with your time. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
No problem at all, lads. Thanks a million.
Great stuff. Ryan McHugh there, Donegal footballer, and of course Kilcar clubman as well. We spent a lot of time up in Carrick there, up in Donegal and near Glencolmkill and Kilcar. If you ever drive into Kilcar, the village where Ryan's from and plays, I mean, it's the most scenic GA pitch in the world, in the country, I'd say. It's just like surrounded by the sea. It's right on the Atlantic. You've got the mountains behind it. It's just gorgeous.
Is there any chance that Michael Murphy built it? Given he seems to have done
quite possibly. He's done everything.
He's done everything else.
He has
in Donegal GAA.
Yeah, there's nothing that man can't do. Yeah, a huge loss for Donegal for sure. Before we leave, Gavin, more World Cup. I mean, you've been obviously doing your research and analysing the groups and the teams ahead of the tournament itself. Any shouts for dark horses, for winners? How are you feeling about the groups? Will there be anyone? You mentioned Qatar as well earlier, with Sadio Mane being out for Senegal, could potentially squeeze into the last 16, but any surprises that you can foresee?
Look, I and all those who listen to my predictions are all still in recovery, having tipped Turkey as dark horses as the
so did I.
At the previous
Shocker.
Euros. They absolutely stank the place out. Who do I think will win? It does feel like the balance of power has finally shifted back to South America. So the World Cup has been carved up by Western Europe for the last 20 years, but I think Brazil probably. I think the only real question mark around them is how they'll do against top level European opposition, because they haven't played them.
Yeah.
They've played one European team since the last World Cup, and that was a 2019 friendly against Czech Republic. So they haven't really been tested there, but then their top players are all playing in Champions League, and most of them are playing the Premier League at this point. So probably Brazil. I really want Argentina to win it. I have to say, I will admit that. I would love to see Messi's legacy crying. Look, his legacy is secure regardless of what happens in this World Cup, but it would be amazing for him to, to win for the great. I think I just like the completeness of legacy of the best player ever to play the game to have won everything there is to win. Yeah, really. So I hope that happens. Dark horses. Maybe I'm overrating them because I've seen them against Ireland and seen them in the flesh, but I think Serbia are really good. Right. Once Mitrovic and Vlahovic are fit, which I think they probably will be, maybe defensively a little bit suspect, but they just have so many goals in that team. They're in a tough enough group with Brazil, Switzerland and Cameroon, I think. But I think maybe Serbia might surprise a few of us. Denmark, are they dark horses? Can I really say that Denmark are anything but a horse in kind of dazzling white glare, given I've seen them so bloody often throughout my life? So maybe them among them. Other interesting things I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to see how Ghana do. Yeah. Obviously they have Chris Hughton there as a kind of a Bobby Robson to the manager Steve Staunton. I wouldn't say they're coming in and a wing and a prayer, but the Ghanaian FA did announce 2 national days of fasting and prayer ahead of the World Cup, just to give them a little bit more luck in this tournament. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes there. And look, England are, as ever.
Well, this is it.
The
big question.
A fascinating story for us.
If I'm to right, I'm going to put you completely on the spot here.
Yeah, please.
And
do.
I'm going to name each group, and you're going to very quickly give me the 2 teams that are going to come out of the group.
Excellent.
We'll go no further, right? Excellent. We'll go no further. So Group A, we've got Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, and the Dutch.
Yeah, so Netherlands to top it, with Qatar squeezing ahead of a Mane-less Senegal.
I like that. Group B, England, Iran, USA, Wales.
England and USA.
Oh, all the Welsh fans have just pressed the off button.
I'm sorry, Wales.
But, it's fair. USA have a strong squad. Probably leaning that way as well.
I think they're the youngest squad in the tournament. They have so much energy, I think. Look, I mean, if Bale is fit for 3 games, he's the ultimate big game player, so that could change it.
Yeah, for sure. Group C, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, Poland.
Saudi Arabia to top, obviously. Argentina followed by Poland.
Argentina followed by Poland. Yeah, because I've seen a lot of people talking about Mexico, but it was
Mexico are the Irish rugby team of Football World Cup.
They're not great at the minute.
They get to the last 16 and they don't win a knockout game. They haven't won. They've been to every last 16 since, I think, it's USA 94,
right? And
they've lost in the last 16 at every World Cup since USA 94.
It's like Ireland at the Rugby World Cup quarterfinals, essentially. Can't get past it. Group D, France, Australia, Denmark, Tunisia.
France to top with Denmark second. I wouldn't be surprised if Denmark top it ahead of France.
Yeah, seems like a fairly straightforward group. Either or, France or Denmark to top it.
Yeah.
Group E, I like this group. Spain, Costa Rica, Germany, Japan.
Yeah, I think Germany to top it.
Ooh.
Spain second, with Japan, who I thought Japan would have had me dark horses label had they been in an easier group.
Tough group.
They'll finish third, and I think Costa Rica will lose all their games.
Right, they're going to be the wooden spoon team of the World Cup.
Themselves are Ghana, maybe. Yeah.
Right. Group F, Belgium, Canada, Morocco, Croatia.
Yeah, it's so interesting because
this is the hipster group.
You'd imagine Belgium and Croatia will be fine, but they're creaking. Maybe actually. Croatia have regenerated themselves a little bit, and obviously Modric doesn't seem to age.
Yeah.
So Croatia will get through. I think Belgium will get through. but I don't think they'll go much further than the last 16.
Right.
Like Alderweireld and Vertonghen is still at the back. Axel Witsel could be in midfield. Lukaku is injured.
Aging.
Hazard's been sitting on the bench, and he's not the kind of guy who who immediately gets his match fitness back, shall we say. And Canada probably won't have enough to get out of the group, but like, can you imagine the pace of like Alphonso Davies and these guys on the counter?
Yeah, if he's fit for the opening game
against that Belgian defence, it could be ugly. And sorry, who do we say the other team in that group?
It's Tunisia.
Oh, Tunisia. I will.
Sorry, which group we're talking about? Belgium, Canada, Morocco, Croatia.
Yeah, so Morocco had dropped. I mean, the coach, Bosnian coach, is it? I can't remember his name. It begins with I can't pronounce his name. He's a kind of an anti-Carlos Queiroz. So Queiroz is back as World Cup in charge of Iran again.
Yes,
I'm sure we all have had our moments watching Carlos Queiroz teams. They're not exactly it's not exactly champagne football.
Tough to watch.
So I thought we wouldn't see him at this World Cup because he left Iran after 2018 to take the Colombia job. Got sacked for not qualifying. Then took the Egypt job. Got sacked for not qualifying, and Iran hired him again anyway, so he's back. And to complete this anecdote, the guy who qualified Morocco, who's again, his name escapes me, I'm sorry, this is the third time now he's qualified a team for the World Cup and been sacked just before the World Cup. They've got a local guy in charge. They've brought back Ziyech because the previous coach had fallen out with him. I think that's probably why he ended up getting the sack. So, but I don't think they'll have enough. I do think Croatia will top it. I think Belgium will squeak through in second, but won't go a whole lot further.
Morocco beat Georgia 3-0 in a friendly last night. Ziyech was on the score sheet. So
Kvaratskhelia wasn't playing. I don't think so.
So they have a bit of strength and depth still to come back in. Group G: Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, Cameroon.
Yeah, really good group this. I think Brazil will top it, and one of the games I've applied for that I'm looking forward to most if I can get in is Serbia against Switzerland.
Brilliant.
In the final group game. That feels like a shootout for second place among countries with a certain amount of history between them. They had a cracker and quite a controversial one at the previous World Cup. So I think Serbia. I'll stick with my dark horses tag and Serbia to beat Switzerland.
A lot of people saying the Swiss, because the Swiss like progressing out of the group. Roy Keane went for the Swiss, I think, to progress second, but that will be a classic game, that Serbia-Switzerland match. Shootout. Not ruling out Cameroon, but I mean Serbia and Switzerland.
Well, Cameroon have. I mean, genuinely, the Cameroon manager is Rigobert Song, and the question posed to him is, can you make room in your team for the most informed striker in the world? Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, once of Stoke, has been unbelievable for Bayern this year, and is not necessarily in their starting team, which is kind of strange. They have to pick him. They absolutely have to pick him.
The final group is Group H: Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, and South Korea.
Yeah, this is kind of a group of flows, really. I mean, none of those teams really stand out. South Korea, hopefully Son is fully fit. It looks like he probably will be, although he's not exactly taking red hot club form in. Portugal will get through. I know Alan Quinlan wants to see them win the tournament. I don't think they will. They have a Ronaldo problem in the sense that they'll play him and they won't drop him, but they're a much better team without him. I think they'll probably qualify. Uruguay are a bit of an unknown quantity. You look at the squad and you think, well, that's an ancient squad because it's got Cavani, Suarez and Diego Godin. But then they've got, Fede Valverde, who's been at Madrid. He's been genuinely one of the best midfielders in Europe this year. They've also the agent of chaos, Darwin Núñez. So it remains to be seen what happens with them. So they're a little bit unpredictable, but I'll go with Uruguay to top the group with Portugal in second.
Interesting. Yeah, that could make for some fairly feisty last 16 ties, I'd imagine. Gavin, great stuff as always. Thanks a million this morning. You're flying it tomorrow afternoon, direct to Doha?
Tomorrow afternoon. I'll miss Ireland, Australia, direct to Doha from Dublin, and then I will arrive at a hotel that hopefully exists.
Well, hopefully when you land, and it's not just a tent in the desert. That would be a start, a nice start to the trip. Gavin, great stuff.
Thanks,
as always this morning. Thanks a million. OTB AM brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mo. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. OTB AM back Monday morning. I'll be with Ger in studio and we'll present you with some world-class Gillette Labs performance rankings. We'll have all the reaction, of course, to the opening game of the World Cup, Qatar and Ecuador on Sunday. Ireland's huge test with Australia from tomorrow evening, plus much more besides. Right now, we're leaving you with the one and only Canada's finest import, Kevin Kilbane. He joined myself and Adrian yesterday ahead of the start of the World Cup. We talked Canada's chances and, of course, Ronaldo's interviews with Piers Morgan as well. Enjoy and have a great weekend.
OTB AM.
All right, World Cup this weekend. Canada calling. Come in, Kevin Kilbane. How are you?
I'm very good, Shane. How's it going?
Keeping well. Any snow over there at the minute? What's the weather like?
Yeah, we've just had a bit of snow last couple of days. Really, now it's just started -4 and 5 overnight now. Really, so the weather's seriously turned in the last week. Yeah.
The local shop was obviously, they were running out of warm jackets, were they? That was all that was left, or how did that come about?
Well, this is just like, as you can see, it's like a bit of a fleece top just to keep you warm, Adrian. You know, you're no more than yourself in your pink t-shirt there. You know,
very stylish.
No, it's great. It's great that you're very observant about people's fashion.
We should start a fashion podcast, lads. This is excellent.
Good shout.
No, Shane, you don't talk about fashion.
Absolutely right, Kev.
Apologies. Yeah, I can't really talk. Kev, there must be a bit of excitement there. 1986 was the last time the Canadians qualified for the World Cup. Must be a decent bit of build up.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think it's really with the hardcore fans, Shane. To be honest with you, it has been a long time coming, but I think it's probably gone under the radar with so many sports supporters here. Or I think we're getting certainly the soccer's getting a lot of publicity over. They're getting a lot of airtime just over the general networks here over the last, especially over the last 2 or 3 weeks, particularly when they qualified back in March. Now, as it turned out. But as we're getting closer and closer, you're starting to feel a little bit of momentum because you really are seeing it. It's almost like front and centre now, yeah.
Is there expectations of getting out of the group? Maybe not expectations. It's a tough enough group to be in. But certainly the target, I guess, will be last 16.
The target probably is, yeah, of course, to get out. Expectations, Shane, you've got to be realistic and say they're playing against 2 of the top probably 6 or 8 teams in the world in Belgium and Croatia. Morocco themselves, if you look through their squad of players, they've got a real talented group of players as well. So I think results, there's been so much negativity around the team and around Canada soccer after qualification. You have to say that they're still in dispute over bonuses ahead of the World Cup. That's not been sorted. We're only a couple of days ahead of the tournament, 4 or 5 days ahead of Canada's first game against Belgium. But I think the feeling is certainly, I think within that group of play around us and everything that's been said around us aside, and we just concentrate on the football itself. And the coach, John Herdman, he's got a background of coaching the Canada women's team, background in New Zealand originally. He's from the northeast of England, but he has. I think he's got them focused in a way where, look, let's put the sideshow apart and let's just get concentrating on the team. And in fairness, results haven't been great, and performances haven't been great. People probably wouldn't have seen the Uruguay game. Outside Uruguay, they've not really played an awful lot of quality opposition. They played Qatar, they've played Bahrain recently, and they're not really a level of team where you can judge them going into Belgium, and that's where probably a lot of the team are. But the Japan game, I think, has gone very well for the team. I think they've been playing very well in that Japan game. It's more of a test or more of a judge on where the team's going to be, and a lot of the key players are back. Jonathan David from Lille, who will probably move. Tajan Buchanan, who's just moved over to Belgium recently as well, playing excellently well, Champions League player this season. So the big players are back, but the worry is around Alphonso Davies, whether or not he'll be fit for that Belgium game.
He seems to get the best out of his players as well, Herdman, doesn't he? He's one of these coaches, and look, as you said, Alphonso Davies is the player they'll be sweating on, but even reasonably good players, 7 out of 10 players, he seems to get the most out of them, John Herdman.
Yeah, I think the key player actually, Shane, Stefan Eustáquio, who plays with Porto. I don't know if anyone's been maybe keeping an eye on Porto. They've done really well in Champions League this season, and Eustáquio's been one of the key players for them. He is the main player. I think there'll be a lot of you guys, if you do watch Canada, you'll really like watching him play. He's a holding midfielder, or he can play as a 6 or an 8 as he plays for Porto. Gets forward, can score goals, but he does play a little bit more reclined for Canada as a holder, essentially. So I think Eustáquio will be the key player for them to get them fit. But if the real game changer will be Alphonso Davies. He doesn't play left back like he plays for Bayern. He plays further forward. We might see him as a 10 in the tournament, playing off Jonathan David, or we will most likely see him on the left-hand side of midfield, because it will probably be a 5-4-1 setup for them, with Buchanan on the right, and how they can counter against sides with their pace. And I think they can score goals. I think there's a lot of talent in this team. So, as I said, expectations have maybe been tempered a little bit, but I do feel there's a lot of talent in this side that they can score goals.
I was watching the FIFA documentary on Netflix during the weekend. It's Shaka Hislop and some of the Trinidad and Tobago players talking about how they got stiffed by Jack Warner for fees and contracts and all that stuff. And I thought, geez, that's really archaic. So I'm astonished in some ways to hear that. Did you say the pay stuff that had cropped up in June that they went on strike about at that time. That's not resolved even now.
No, it's not resolved. Still not resolved, Adrian. There's a lot of negativity around the side. You know, they had a friendly arranged against Iran in the summer. I think it was June. They had a game. Anyone who knows politically, it was maybe a bad game to arrange. I think for Canada, simply because of the missile that struck down the airliner a few years ago that killed numerous Canadians. They were under pressure from Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, to cancel that game. They did cancel it. They hastily arranged another game, which the players boycotted themselves, refused to play over this bonus that they haven't got in place. I think the women and the guys are both on board, which, you know, it's quite unique what they're trying to do here. They're trying to say, look, if the men's team qualify for a major tournament, the pot's going to be split between the women and the men. And also when the women, which obviously they're in our group for the World Cup, so that'll be interesting to see how our women do against Canada come next year in Australia. But they're splitting the pot again with the men and the women's team. They're trying to equal pay, still not sorted here yet for match fees, which again, considering how well the Canadian women have done over the last 10 or 15 years, it's crazy, that one, really. But hopefully that will be sorted and that will be done and dusted. But there's a lot going on, down in cattle class. We've heard it all before. Us as Irish supporters, we've heard it all before. You know, we've seen probably, or we've lived what's probably going on now, which maybe happened within our organisation 20 years ago. So there's a lot that they need sorted, Adrian. But as I said, I think John Herdman has tried to park all the negativity that's around the team going into this tournament and tried to say, look, just focus on the match itself, or the matches themselves, because there's so many players that are nowhere near the level that they'll be playing against. Certainly, a lot of them play MLS football, a lot of them play maybe lower league football around Europe. So the big players like Alphonso Davies, Eustáquio, Jonathan David, Buchanan, these guys that I've spoke about earlier, these are the guys that are going to be reliant on to get them results in those big games against Belgium and Croatia.
One man who will be at the World Cup, Kev, is Cristiano Ronaldo, and a bit of a circus around this interview with Piers Morgan, and the timing of it, I guess, has been one issue that certainly has been brought up. But what was your take on the whole thing? Clearly, the United players aren't happy, and it seems, when you go attacking your manager, it's not great, is it?
No, that's him, isn't it? Let's be honest. I don't think anybody in the wildest dreams or wildest thoughts would ever think that Cristiano Ronaldo is not vain. It's not all about Cristiano Ronaldo. That's the way that he's played his whole career. That's what he's been about. So realistically, he's on the wane as a player, and I think it's hard to accept. It's hard at whatever level that you're playing at. It's hard to accept that you're not the player that you probably once was. And I don't think he probably realised how much he would probably have to give to the team aspect. I think that's one thing that he could probably get away with in Spain. I think anyone that's watched him over the last 10 or 15 years realised that Real Madrid's team was built around him. You had the workmen around him that freed him up to play on the left-hand side. You know, Gareth Bale and him clashed numerous times over the years because of the position that Bale was asked to play, not necessarily able to fit into that side. So there's a number of things where you kind of knew when he signed it wasn't necessarily going to work out, given United, and they were never able to build a side around him. They would have had to probably been 3 or 4 different players that would have had to go in to suit him. And yeah, he's going to score goals, but realistically, anyone watching United knew full well that he wasn't probably the right fit for United and what they needed when they brought him in. So it's boiled over frustration that's come out in him. And I actually didn't like the interview, listening to it and watching it. I'm sure a lot of people see it. I just think there's so many leading questions within the interview. I just kind of watching it, going, the state of the pair of them actually watching it. So Ronaldo, that's the only thing I can say on it, Shane. That's my take on it. I didn't expect anything less from him. I don't think he'll play again for United. He shouldn't play again for United. And that's maybe seems to be the message that's coming out of United over the last 24, 48 hours.
I thought it was a hard watch. If you respected everything he's done as a player, it was a hard watch in the sense that he was the critique of people like Neville or Rooney, the differences in his analysis around that stuff just seems so wrong-headed to me that he viewed any criticism of him as a player as being negative comment. Out of it, for me, was if there's been all this conversation about the tension around Did United, were they trying to get rid of him, or were they blocking a move for him to go somewhere? But if I'm a manager at the club now, looking at that playing out, I mean, I know managers do tend to delude themselves that I can get the best out of this guy, I'll bring him in, put the arm around him. But you're looking at that. Piers Morgan is banging on about getting whatever it was, 40 million views or whatever today on part one. If you're a manager looking at that, I'm not sure you want to put yourself in the path of that, even given what he's done as a player.
No, I'm your agent, to be honest with you.
I'm giving my opinion on it.
I know you're giving me opinion, but asking me at the same time. No, I know. I think that's fair. It is. As I said before, it's all around. You know, he's done that interview for a reason, hasn't he? The way that he's done that interview, for a reason of, I want to get as many views as possible. I want to get my story. He's trying to control the narrative of that story, isn't he? That's exactly what he's tried to do, rather than say, well, look, things aren't going particularly well for me at my club. I'm not necessarily in the team at the moment. I'm going to work hard to get back in the side. We know those days are gone now, particularly for the level of player that Cristiano Ronaldo is. But I don't know. It almost seems to me it's a bit sad. I don't know. Did you not watch it in the clips that I've seen? I've not seen the interview yet, actually. I've just been seeing the clips that's been drip fed onto Twitter and various social media feeds. And it's just quite sad. You said before, given what he's achieved and everything that he's achieved, rightly so, because of the player that he was. But it just seems quite sad that a player would reduce himself to doing an interview with Piers Morgan in that way, when he talks about, in that interview, there's so many players that aren't professional enough. Man United, it's not about the football. Well, if it's about the football to Ronaldo, then he wouldn't be doing that interview, would he? Let's be quite honest about that. So you know full well there's a different agenda there. So that's the way that I viewed it. I just think, as I said before, I just think it's sad. I think it's almost like a sad end to him, because there's talk of him coming over to the MLS over here, so I'll watch that probably to see if that does come about. But I can't. He's not going to go to a top. He's not going to go to a top four club in any league, is he? Let's be honest. You can't see PSG taking him, who realistically got a chance to win the Champions League. You know, there was talk of Chelsea where their owner was talking of bringing him in because he wants that maybe star profile, that social media superstar, I suppose, to come into the team. But I can't imagine Graham Potter being able to handle that type of personality in that dressing room. I just can't see it. So in England, no. Spain, no, absolutely not. And if you look at Italy, I mean, if you look at Juventus, the way that they are now, he's almost crippled that club financially with the financial package that he had in place. Juventus are miles off where they were 3 or 4 years ago before they signed Ronaldo. So honestly, I just think it's a sad end to him. And you know, I think you can maybe go back to Portugal and, you know, see out your days. If he wants to carry on playing, there's still a place for him within some side. But at the top elite level, there doesn't seem to be a place for him in any side.
Yeah, maybe it will be the MLS, as you say, Kev. A lot of those MLS guys will come up against England, Gareth Southgate's England at this World Cup. A bit of expectation around the US squad. A lot of those with Premier League experience, some of those Leeds players as well. Like, do you think Southgate knows his best team? How do you think England are set heading into the World Cup?
I mean, watching England at the Euros, Shane, I mean, I was actually really, really disappointed with Southgate's setup in that tournament throughout. I know they got to the final, but ultimately, I think it was a setup that cost them in the final against Italy. But maybe going back to the US team, you said there's a lot of bit of hype around them. Maybe there's a lot of expectation. I don't rate them, Shane. I don't think they're a good side. I've seen an awful lot of them, particularly through qualification here in CONCACAF. Anyone that looks at the Morocco game, they beat Morocco earlier on this year. They beat them 3-0. Take nothing from that game because they give up a lot of chances in the match. And Morocco, it was almost like a testimonial game. It was just so open, the game. But I saw them play Japan recently. They lost to Japan. There's a lot of energy in the team, Shane, with the US. And you mentioned the Aronson and Tyler Adams at Leeds. Tyler Adams, I think, is a really good player, actually. Aronson plays a lot of energy, but there's not a lot of creativity in the side. I don't think, personally. Pulisic is a player, again, plays with a lot of energy, but is there an end product with him? Personally, I don't think there is. The captain, Walker Zimmerman, plays in the MLS. A bit of a liability is the way that I see it. Turner, the goalkeeper, who's now signed for Arsenal, I don't rate him. I don't see him as a real top class goalkeeper. I'm picking apart the side here. Gee, that sounds awful, but I don't see them at the level that maybe they see themselves at. McKinney, who plays at Juventus, I quite like him. I think he's a bit of a powerhouse, but at times he's sloppy in possession. He's more of a runner from midfield who can arrive in the penalty area and score a goal. But playing the US side, I think he's got to play a bit deeper. So Defensively, they have Dest, who's at AC Milan now from Barcelona. Again, he's another one who's not great defensively, very good getting forward, pacey, quick going forward. But I don't see him as a real outstanding defender. England should exploit the US. I don't think they're as good as they are. CONCACAF, as a region here, Canada topped it, I thought, convincingly. They were the best team by far. Mexico, probably the worst team I've ever seen from Mexico. If anyone that would have watched Mexico in World Cups gone by, you wait to watch Mexico because there's a bit of a buzz and excitement around them, the energy they play with. I've not seen that from Mexico, and I've not seen it in the friendlies that they've been playing in recently as well. So I wouldn't judge anything from Mexico going into this tournament as well. But the US, I think they should be dispatched by England. I think England have got way too much for them and Iran. I expect England to get 9 points. Wales, I don't think Wales, in all honesty, I don't think they've got the squad that they had maybe 4-6 years ago as well. I know Bale's the enigma that can produce something. He did that in the MLS Cup final. If anyone would have seen that last-minute equaliser to take the game to penalties for LAFC. But he's just not played an awful lot of games, Shane. And so I think if I'm looking at that group, England should convincingly take 9 points. But judging that from the 9 points they'll probably get from that group, 7 at least, I don't necessarily see them as a team that's going to go out and get deep into the tournament. I think there's too many question marks around England if I'm looking at a lot of the other sides that I think potentially are in a better place ahead of this tournament.
It just struck me, who are you going to support at the Women's World Cup, Ireland or Canada?
Come on, Jesus Christ. Why would I support? I'm Irish. I'm Irish. Jeez, why would I support anybody? When have I ever hot nations? Tell me when.
Was there not an England underage squad?
I was picked for England underage, and I turned them down, as you well know. Why?
Kind of worms here.
Yeah, you're just waffling on there. You're trying
Are
to
you
look
out
for
for
it.
Are you out for the duration? No matter what happens with Canada.
No, I am. Yeah, I'm there for the duration. I'm looking forward to the knockout stages, actually, as it's going to turn out. I think that's when we know it'll get interesting. I know that a lot of the crap that's around this World Cup, and I honestly, I think I'm really interested to see how it's going to be reported over there on Qatari television, with everything that's gone on around it, the World Cup. And you mentioned that documentary, the FIFA documentary. I've actually downloaded it, so I'm going to watch it on the plane when I'm heading over there. But how they were given the World Cup, the human rights issues, the LGBTQ, and all the issues they've got around homosexuality out there in Qatar, women's rights, all these sort of things. I'm going to be interested to see how it goes out there. And let's be honest, Qatar shouldn't be hosting a World Cup. I think we all recognise that, and there is an ill feeling around the World Cup being in Qatar, but we simply have to look at the football, and I think we'll all look at it once the tournament actually does start, and we look at how it's going to go. Not least because it's a winter tournament; it shouldn't be played in the winter. We know that, and there's a lot of players that feel tired coming into this World Cup because of the amount of games. I'm just looking forward, honestly, to seeing. I'm really looking forward to seeing Croatia, because they're a team I've watched them an awful lot. I'm looking forward to see how they go. I'm looking forward to seeing Brazil. I think Brazil have got a great chance of winning it. I think we've got the best squad. Let's see how France go. Can they retain it? There's a lot of things I'm looking to really go and experience out there, but there's a lot of other issues I think that I'll be probably keeping a close eye on as well.
Yeah, there was certainly a couple of weird scenarios that cropped up during the week. There was a Danish TV guy that got approached by 3 or 4 heavies in a golf cart. Grant Wall was reprimanded for taking a photograph of some slogan in a dressing room or a press room. And the facilities for fans looked to be Fire Festival-esque, was how I described it on Twitter.
It's not great.
Is there any part of you that's concerned, or are you comfortable enough?
A little bit. Honestly, God, I tell you, the amount of traveling that I've done over the years. First of all, honestly, I'm actually a little bit anxious for the first time actually traveling, just simply because leaving the family. I think it's been. I haven't left Canada in 3 years, and the amount of traveling that I was doing when I was working with you guys and off the ball over there, and I was going back and forth to England an awful lot. I was having 2 and 3 flights a week, 4 flights a week sometimes. It was crazy, the schedule that I had, and I've had a lot of downtime in the last few years, and I'm probably a little bit anxious because of that. I have to say that's what I'm feeling. Not least because I'm going to a country that, as I said before, it's hard to ever have imagined Qatar with all there may be records, or maybe anywhere across the Middle East with the records on on as I said before, on homosexuality and all these sort of things that are outlawed. It's hard to imagine I'm going to a country. The first time I'm actually really leaving Canada, since I've arrived here, I'm going to a country that's so alien to us and to our thinking, to the Irish way of thinking. That's the way that I feel. So it's going to be strange for me. It is. But in answer to your question, yeah, there is probably a little bit of anxiety in me for the first time when I've ever travelled in my life. Yeah, I have to say that.
Kev, great stuff. Well, listen, hopefully you can enjoy some of it at least. And here's to Canada getting out of the group and doing some damage. And we'll check in with you daily across the World Cup as well.
All right, take it easy. Thanks, guys. Looking forward to it.
Safe travel.
Alan, was tonight maybe a reminder as to why they got rid of international friendlies? Bit of a struggle?
Yeah, it was a frustrating one. Credit to the fans, it's a friendly and they came out in their numbers and support us like they always do. But I don't think we returned the favour with that performance. Especially first half, I think we were really flat and didn't create anything really. But second half was much improved and we definitely looked a stronger team. But again, we didn't take our chances when they fell to us and got punished at the other end.
What's that like in the first half when it is flat on the pitch, it's flat off the pitch, and I guess part of your job is to change that? Are you very aware 20 minutes in that the energy isn't where you would want it to be?
Yeah, of course, as a player you know what's happening, but at this level if a team's going to sit in and be that compact, you know it's always going to be a tough afternoon, and when they got their goal, even more so because you need to push for it.
Were you ready for that? Did you expect them to have such a low block?
Yeah, we did, yeah. But again, you know, no matter how good you are, you're going to find it difficult to break them down, and we definitely did. First half, second half, we got a bit more joy. You know, we got a lot of crosses in the box and created some good chances. Yeah, it is difficult against a team that's got good quality when they do something like that.
So what changed in the second half then that you were able to suddenly start creating what felt like a lot of chances, and there was a different tempo to the performance?
I think we got our wing backs a bit higher up the pitch. You know, first half we were probably knocking it around the back, kept a lot of possession, but it didn't really go anywhere with it. And second half, you know, we got our full backs up the pitch. They kind of got at the full backs and got some good crosses in the box, and that's where we looked like we would hurt them. But again, you know, goals was probably lacking tonight, and that's what we need if we're going to win games.
Got the one. Your goal was a brilliant finish. Probably deserved a lot more in terms of the final result. What are your memories of it? Was it sort of always smash it into the ground and use the surface to your advantage?
Yeah, there was a bit of zip on the pitch, so I thought just keep it low. Thankfully, it found its way into the corner. But again, it's disappointing to you know, pull one back and then throw it away at the end.
It's a good habit you have, though. You're getting what's that, 5 international goals now?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's 5. Yeah, so you know, it's a good trait to have. You know, it's obviously something that the gaffer might look to. You know, if he's making changes or picking a team. If he wants a goal, hopefully I can step up to the mark.
It does feel that he has a lot of trust in you. You've obviously got a lot of versatility, which can be a blessing in some ways, but at other times then you don't have that fixed position. But it does feel as though he's ready to give you a lot of game time. That must feel make you feel pretty good when you're coming into camp, that you know you're probably going to get an opportunity.
Yeah, you know, he has put his trust in me and got a good relationship with him, so I know what he expects from me and what I can bring to the team, so I just keep trying to do that every chance he gives me, and whether that's starting the game or coming from the bench, I try to hit the box and add goals to my game.
It's been a strange year. In the 9th game, I think it's 3 wins, 4 defeats, 2 draws, and just it's been a struggle to get momentum, that every time it feels like the team is on the verge of something, there's a setback or there's a mistake or there's a goal given away from a set piece. Within the camp, I don't say what's the mood, but how frustrating is it that you haven't been able to really kick on and like head into France next year with a real wave of momentum behind you?
Yeah, it's a tough one. But you know, at international level, you have a week or 2 at a time, and then you're back to club, and you don't see each other for months on end. So it is difficult to keep that momentum, even when, you know, if we win our next game, it's going to be a while until our next fixture. So it is always difficult to keep momentum at international football, but that's something that we need to do, and winning games becomes a habit. So we'll stay positive, look to improve on our weaknesses tonight and take that into Sunday's game.
There is always a constant scrutiny on the Ireland manager. We've seen even Martin O'Neill, with all his experience, saying how he struggled with the scrutiny, it seems, in this job. Do you feel that you're having to play for the manager? Do you feel like you're having to play for his future, that there's an added pressure for that the questions that are always there about results and about his future?
Not necessarily. I think any manager that comes in, you want to play for him. You want to play for your country first and foremost, and for the badge. And I personally think he's a great manager, and he's got a great relationship with us as a group of players. And since he's come in, I think we've really improved. He's got his own style, and I think everybody's taken to it and taken to him as a manager and as a person. And we've had some really good results under him, but the struggle is consistency, and he's always, obviously, as you said, he's the one who's going to take the hit when results aren't coming. But it's down to us as players to win games for them. But again, he'll take the slack at the end of the day.
A lot of your teammates at club level are probably already off on the beach. You've got one more game to go against Malta. What's the plan then? Do you get a couple of weeks off? Are you going to sit and watch the World Cup?
I've got a week off after this, so I'm going to go back to the family and just switch off, chill out, and because we don't get this opportunity much with international breaks. You're always away, so it'll be nice to just switch off and not think about football.
Thanks for your time. Dara, very disappointing end to a good second half performance after probably a forgettable enough first half.
Yeah, first half was disappointing in that aspect, maybe a bit slow and laboured and didn't really get in behind them. Second half was a lot brighter. We could tell we were causing Norway problems, and that showed the way they tried to manage the game. So positives to take from the second half in the aspect of attacking. Yeah. And
defensively, the things to take away that are disappointments, 2 set pieces, I'm sure something that's very frustrating.
Yeah, extremely frustrating, especially for us as a back unit. We don't want to concede from them areas, and we pride ourselves on keeping clean sheets. So to concede in that manner twice is disappointing. We shouldn't be losing the game from that way, and yeah, obviously if we're not going to go on and win it, we definitely can't lose it.
Just heard Stephen Kenny describe the first half as a real tactical battle. It never felt like it got going, and I know it's a friendly and they're sort of a rare thing now, friendlies. Did it feel like that on the pitch, that it was hard to get to the energy levels you've got to around Nations League games or qualifiers?
Maybe. I don't think that in itself was a factor. I think Norway made it hard for us. They sat in that low block in their half and made it hard to break down, and I suppose we just didn't have that little injection of pace and tempo in the first half that we did in the second. So the gaffer pointed out at half time and he said we needed to get in behind them a bit more, and the second half we did.
In the second half, is part of that ye as a centre back three having less of the ball, because you did seem to have an awful lot of it in the first half, that, as you said, they were sitting so far back that you're getting it more to Josh Cullen or out to the wingers for them to be the ones making an impact?
Yeah, look, we know as a backlot we need to get the ball to our playmakers and inject pace into the play. We don't want to be sitting on the ball and moving it across, and when we are, we're doing it for a reason, and we're moving the ball for a purpose, and maybe holding on to it to draw players in, which maybe from the outside doesn't look pleasing, but it's all the way we play, and it's I suppose what we need to do to build and move up the ball forward.
A lot of very good goals been scored by this Irish side at the moment. It seems every game here there's a memorable one. It was a brilliant finish from Alan Brown.
Yeah, touchy class from Alan to score from that area. It's unbelievable, and it's what we needed at that time. The momentum was fully with us then, and yeah, you just hope that we could push on and score a second.
On to Malta now to finish the year. Probably maybe a bit more experimentation. What's your plan after that? Do you get a break, or are you straight back in with the club?
Yeah, I think lots of the lads have a small break, obviously, with the World Cup going on. So it's a time for players to kind of recoup and regenerate and I suppose get ready for a busy second half of the season. So yeah, personally I have a small break and that's that. Yeah,
I suspect the word flat isn't the word we'd be using for the next international at this game, that qualifier against France. There's a lot of football for them to be played between now and then. It's 4 months away, but how much are you looking forward to that game?
Yeah, as a player, I mean, you want to play the best players and big nations like that, and obviously them coming here, we know how good our fans are and how loud they could be, and they can really spur us on and help us, and I think you've seen that in previous matches. So it's really exciting for us as players to obviously have drawn them. As much as we'd probably like to get a bit of an easier group, it's a great test for us, and I think as players we've got to be on it and hungry to win.
You going to watch the World Cup?
I will watch it, yeah. I mean, you can't not watch it, I suppose. But yeah, it'll be a time to relax as well. So I won't be keeping too keen an eye on it.
Thanks for your time, Dara. Callum, it felt like one of those nights where it just took a little bit too long to get going. Why do you think that was?
I think Norway respected us. They stayed in a mid to low block, and it was tough. It doesn't matter what football game it is. If a team sits in like that, it is tough to break down. Yeah, we probably could have been better in moments in the final third, in the first half. But when you get to a point and then you've got 8, 9 players where you've got to break them down, it is tough. That you could be training and doing it, and it's tough. So, but credit to the boys. I think we've shown personality to come out in the second half and really push on. And I think we deserved the goal. When we did get the goal, I think we was knocking on the door, and then a lovely strike from Brownie, and then it's just disappointing then to concede another set piece. I don't think they've had many chances in the game. I think the one over the bar first half, and then I can't remember much more. So yeah, it is disappointing.
Had you anticipated as an attacking unit that it was going to be that low block you were going to go up against?
No, probably not, because they've got some quality players, and that just shows that they respected us. So yeah, we didn't probably expect such a low block. We thought they'd press a little bit more than they did. I think they still tried to press now and again, but I think most of it, if I can think back, sometimes in the game, but I think most of it they give it a go sometimes. But then when we got to a certain point, they was just all sitting in, and it's tough.
So was that the conversation at half time then about how you'd tackle that a bit better?
Yeah, of course. We needed to get our wing backs higher up and in better positions, and to be a little bit more positive. And then me and Mike needed to get a little bit closer together, so we was connected a little bit more. And we spoke about that, and it did work in the end. And that's what I mean. We got the goal, and then, as I said, it's just disappointing then to concede another set piece, because we take pride in that, and it's disappointing. We work hard on the training pitch on set pieces. We know in big games set pieces are key. We've scored some good ones over in the past. So yeah, it's disappointing that we've lost the game on 2 set pieces.
Who leads that training on set pieces? Because there have been questions about Anthony Barry leaving and John Eustace leaving, that maybe there's a gap in the coaching team around set pieces.
No, we've got enough. We've got the staff. Keith's played loads of games, and he helps us with that. The gaffer's involved, the goalkeeping coach, Dino. Like we've got enough. There's nothing in that where you can look at that and think, is that making a difference or not? I don't think, and I think it's down as well to the players. We have to take responsibility when we're out there to make sure we clear the ball or make sure we pick up your men on our jobs. So I don't think anything to do with Anthony Barry or John or whatever that makes any difference. I don't think that's much in that.
It feels like tonight in a way almost sums up the last year, that there's been a struggle at times. There've been periods where it's been really, really good, but there's just been a lack of momentum of the big moments at the right time going your way, and then being able to kick on to the next game and follow it up with another victory. Is that the sense within the squad, that you're just not getting the run of results that you need?
I think, as you said, at times we've done really well and picked up some good results, and then we just get a little kick in the teeth, and it's hard, but I think overall, I think if you look over the last 3-4 years, how far we've come, even to the point where, first half we wasn't in the game, in the final third, but the movements and the rotations and the playing to get to that point 3-4 years ago, there was none of that. So I think we are definitely developing as a team. The last little bit did come in the end, second half, but obviously we'd want that through the whole 90 minutes. But when you're playing against top quality defenders and players, when they're in that low block or mid block, it's definitely tough. Yeah,
I heard a couple of the players mention Jamie McGrath's experience as a real motivation for them at club level to keep going, where he's going from starting big games to not being in the squad at all. Your situation is not that extreme, but over the last year, from where you were 12 months ago and the goal against Luxembourg rounding off it, just a really brilliant 3 or 4 months, to losing your place in the team over the last campaign. How have you found that, and how have you found going from that high to maybe having to really scrap for your spot in the 11 again?
Yeah, it's football, and it's disappointing. I want to obviously always be playing, and I want to be involved, and I want to help the team, but that's football. I think the majority of footballers would go through that ups and downs. I don't think there's many who just stay at the top and playing every game. I think them that side of the game. It does come, and it's not nice, but yeah, hopefully I can just keep working hard and keep working hard at Cardiff as well to get myself obviously back in this team and playing and starting all the time, because I always back myself to know I'm good enough, but it's obviously me to perform and do that.
I suspect we won't be using the word flat for the next home game here against France in March. It's going to be a very, very different experience. How much already are you looking forward to that, and is watching them at the World Cup going to be a part of it and part of the motivation for wanting to get to a big tournament like that?
Yeah, of course. I think we was disappointed that we didn't get there in the end, but yeah, sitting there as a footballer and you're playing international football, I think everyone wants to be at the World Cup or the Euros. So now we need to obviously get a good result on Sunday, and then we can go into March positive and bring them on, basically, because they're obviously a lot of quality, and we've got a tough group, but why not give it a right go, and hopefully we can get to that tournament.
Thanks for your time, Callum.
Thank you, cheers.
So a very disappointing end to 2022 on home soil for the Republic of Ireland, beaten 2-1 by Norway. Stewie Byrne alongside me as always on commentary. Wasn't great.
Yeah, it wasn't great, yeah, but in saying that, I would take away some positives from Ireland's point of view. I have to say second half they were better. Took their goal really well. Alan Brown, I think we've proved, then, you know, well, not to be proved, but we certainly showed that we've got goals in the team. However, it was disappointing leading up to that. I think Norway, to be fair to them, came with a very good game plan, stopped us from playing. And when you look at the first half possession, what was it, 60-40? I don't know.
62% possession for Ireland.
Not often that you would have that in an
Almost
Ireland
twice
game.
as many passes.
Yeah, especially against the Norwegian team. But I suppose the takeaway really is that we've defended poorly for two set pieces, which is not really like us, and something that we should never forget, because you know Ireland teams in the past have always been based on a good foundation of not conceding goals the way we've conceded tonight.
And what about Stephen Kenny teams? Because this is becoming a big issue, that Ireland are giving away either soft goals in open play or conceding from set pieces. And all right, they're going up against Martin Odegaard, who is brilliant with his deliveries, and both of them are really good deliveries.
Well, the first one was, second one wasn't. But yeah.
But why are Ireland conceding so many goals so often from positions where they should do better? Is that working the training ground?
No, I think that should be a reminder to the team that you just don't concede sloppy goals. Like, you know, there should always be a voice or voices in those situations.
OTB AM with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mo. The Koigig Pod on OTB Sports.